Chapter 7191. After taking off Wu Qing and the other storage rings, the group also received a considerable amount of loot. I didn't expect Wu Qing to have so many things on him, even though he usually doesn't show off. Jiang Zhen looked at the items in his hand. In fact, he also had a lot of cultivation resources. However, at his cultivation level, in order to achieve a breakthrough, cultivation resources were used up extremely quickly. Everyone in the town was familiar with each other, so robbing was naturally impossible. They had to rely on themselves to obtain all the cultivation resources. Now that they had such a large amount of cultivation resources, it was a windfall for them. Young Master D, we didn't do anything. We don't deserve these things. Jiang Zhen felt a little guilty. These things did make them envious, but thinking about it carefully, they should all belong to D. Beichen. Everyone has a share. D. Beichen smiled faintly. We are a team. Hearing this, Jiang Zhen looked at D. Beichen excitedly. From this moment on, D. Beichen was a real boss in his eyes. It was rare to see such a magnanimous person on a normal day. The fear and suspicion in his heart had long disappeared completely during the process of getting along with him. Young Master D, I feel that you have the potential to be a boss. Hearing this, Lu Jinhe looked up at the sky and subconsciously looked at D. Beichen. Jiang Zhen was right. When they set off, Jiang Zhen was the one in charge of the team. However, at some point the person in charge had become D. Beichen. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Indeed, there are people who follow Beichen and call him boss. As expected, Jiang Zhen said calmly. It's not strange at all. If you stay in our town, you will be the mayor. Will you consider it? I don't have such plans for now. Jiang Zhen, don't even think about it. It won't work. Yang Tianzhao pulled Jiang Zhen aside. He knew very well that some people were destined to be different from others. They usually stayed in the town, so they didn't feel much. However, after seeing D. Beichen, they knew that these two people were not ordinary people. Let alone here, the realm of chaotic immortals was not a place for them to develop. The immortal realm was the only place they should go. I'm just fantasizing. Jiang Zhen sighed. He had never thought of recognizing someone as his boss. However, after seeing D. Beichen, he couldn't help but have this idea. It was simply too lucky to have such a generous boss. Plus, he had a sister-in-law who could concoct pills. He really envied D. Beichen's little brother. In the future, it would not be a problem for him to have a meteoric rise. Young Master Gong, I heard that He Yin has already left a mark on Master. That guy is pretty fast. Gong Jun smiled faintly. He still couldn't pass through the barrier, right? The power of the barrier is too strong. The reason why we were able to come here was because we had to prepare for a long time before we succeeded. He Yin won't be able to succeed in a short period of time just by relying on his own power. It's fine. Gong Jun was very calm. There are a lot of things that Master hasn't remembered. Even if Black Flame appears, he won't recognize him. Is there still no movement from Black Demon? The man shook his head. Black Demon is still very quiet. It seems that they haven't made any contact with Master. Chapter 7192. Black Killer is too stubborn. Gong Jun shook his head helplessly. It has been many years since it left. Black Sha has always believed that Master will find it. Black Killer's personality isn't as lively as Black Flame's, but this guy is very loyal to Master. Master trusted it the most back then. Lively. The man paused. Maybe Jin Yan is too lively, Gong Jun. That's true. It was good that this fellow appeared later, lest he caused any trouble. This fellow had caused trouble every few days and they were used to it. The fourth prince and the others have already left? Our people have already lured them away and sent people to protect Master. Master will be fine. Gong Jun nodded slightly. This guy wants to find Master? Dream on. Keep a close eye on what's going on over there. If there's even the slightest news, inform me immediately. Young Master Gong, don't worry. I will never let them threaten Master. The man said hesitantly, actually, it's not difficult for Master to recover his memory. Why? Gong Jun stared blankly for a moment. Master naturally has his reasons for arranging everything. Don't interfere in this matter. If I find out what else you've done, be careful of your life. Understood, young Master Gong. The man didn't dare to say anything more. This subordinate will definitely not interfere. I wonder what young Master Gong plans to do next? Me? Gong Jun raised his eyebrows. Naturally, I have to find Master. Beichen, is that demonic beast the one we encountered back then? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyebrows revealed a thoughtful expression. She vaguely felt that there was a relationship between the two. Although these two places were very far from each other, and the possibility of coming from any direction was very small, such thoughts kept appearing in his mind and he couldn't get rid of them. Bei-chin turned his eyes, the corner of his mouth hooked up in a smile. Why do you think so? Intuition. My wife's intuition is really accurate. Is the one we met back then. Is it true? Bailey Hongzhuang was a little surprised. How did it come here by sensing the tablet? According to it, it's not in the same place as us. There's a barrier that prevents it from approaching, so what appeared just now was only its mental strength. As for where its real body is, I don't know. I see. Bailey Hongzhuang understood. Although the doubts in her heart were still unanswered, at least it explained why it appeared in these two places. It recognized you as its master just now? It said that it has been my contracted beast for a long time, but I have forgotten some things. Have you forgotten something? Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly. She couldn't help but think of the situation she encountered when she was comprehending the tablet. That voice clearly reminded her not to look for it if she chose to forget. She originally thought that she had encountered such a situation, but she never thought that Bei-chin would be in a similar situation. This was getting more and more puzzling. I don't know what happened, but this guy is so weird. Maybe it remembered wrongly. Bei-chin looked at the black totem in his hand. He still felt that this guy's words were a little strange and he couldn't think of a connection at all. Maybe? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Has it left already? Chapter 7193. I don't know when it will appear again. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. This guy's strength is stronger than anyone we've encountered. Even though she didn't see it for herself, she could tell that its strength was extremely terrifying from the fact that it could easily kill Wu Qing with only its mental strength. She believed that even Qing Devil wouldn't be a match for this monster. By the way, what's its name? Bailey Hongzhuang asked curiously. Hearing this question, Bei-chin's expression suddenly became strange. What's wrong? Can't I tell you its name? Said, its name is Baba. Bei-chin shrugged slightly. It was really awkward to say this name out loud. Baobao? Bailey Hongzhuang was also dumbfounded. She always thought that for such a terrifying demonic beast, its name should be incomparably domineering. Thinking about how this guy was so ruthless when it attacked, it was completely unrelated to her baby. Bei-chin nodded. That's right. If you're really its master, then didn't you give it this name? Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly laughed. Bei-chin paused and said calmly, I'm sure it must have mistaken me for someone else. The following situation was much smoother than Lu Jin and the others expected. They thought that they would have to go through many dangers to cross the natural moat, but with Bei-chin around, all the dangers seemed to be automatically reduced. It was a smooth journey, and all the troubles seemed to have hidden themselves. If they didn't clearly remember everything they had experienced before, they would even suspect that the natural moat wasn't dangerous at all. What made them most speechless was that the crocodile river, which they had always been afraid of, was like treading on thin ice every time they crossed it. If they were careless, they would become food for the crocodiles. But this time, when they passed by the crocodile river, the crocodiles were extremely well behaved. They stayed in the water and looked at them respectfully, without any intention of treating them as food. Vaguely, they even perceived a trace of kindness from the attitude of these crocodiles. Kindness? When this thought appeared in their minds, Lu Jin and the others thought that they must be crazy. These ferocious fellows always wanted to overturn their boats and eat them up. Now they were showing kindness to them. This was simply too scary. However, they felt that Bei-chin was even more terrifying than these crocodiles. Young Master D, how did you do this? Jiang Zhen looked at Bei-chin in disbelief. The previous situation was already shocking enough. He didn't expect that there was something even more shocking. Why don't you teach us a few moves as skills? In the future, when we come here again, we'll have more trump cards. Not only that, if they could master zzzzz, ssssss, if they can't. TTT did anything. Estes have testits. When he first came down, he could feel that these monsters were less aggressive toward him than Lu Jin and the others, but it wasn't to this extent. If he had to say when the situation began to change, it should be after he met Bao Bao. Chapter 7194. Could it be that Bao Bao has such a great influence on these demons? Bei-chin instinctively looked at the black flame in his palm. Apart from this reason, he could not think of any other. With Bao Bao's terrifying strength, it was normal for these demons to be so fearful if it was really here. However, Bao Bao had only left a mark. If that was enough to make these demons change so drastically, then Bao Bao's influence was much greater than he had imagined. Bailey Hongzhuang noticed Di Beichen's expression and could roughly guess what was going on. She had to admit that this situation was very convenient for them. If Bao Bao was really Di Beichen's contracted beast, then they would undoubtedly have another trump card. However, they could not be sure if Bao Bao had mistaken them for someone else. If this fellow really did mistake them for someone else, they did not know if it would fly into a rage out of humiliation. I'm really envious of the dark attribute now. Jiang Jin sighed. Usually, everyone talks about how bad dark attribute cultivators are. I even believed it. Now it seems like it's all prejudice. There was nothing bad about Di Beichen and Bao Bao. On the contrary, both of them were first-rate geniuses. In my opinion, we can try to find a dark attribute cultivator to join our team when we return, Yang Tianzhao suggested. Lu Jin's eyes lit up. That's a good suggestion. We can consider it. Bailey Hongzhuang found it rather funny when she saw the three of them whispering behind them and thinking about where to look. Ever since Bao Bao appeared, the demons here did not attack them at all. Hence, they walked as if they were walking on flat ground. They even displayed their usual speed and were getting closer and closer to the crossing immortal domain. We'll arrive at the crossing immortal domain after we pass through the canyon in front. Lu Jin pointed at the canyon in front of them. The canyon was like a fan. There was an extremely narrow passage in the center that only one person could pass through. The crossing immortal domain has been sealed for many years. The restriction there is actually very powerful. If anyone tries to force their way through this layer of restriction, it's tantamount to courting death. Even an elementary celestial stage cultivator will definitely die if they touch the restriction. Then how did you trade with them? Although this restriction is strong and comprehensive, there will still be some small gaps. Moreover, the manager of the crossing immortal domain has a certain connection with the immortal domain. After we pass through this canyon, there will be a very small cave entrance. Every time we will trade there. However, after we arrive, we can only send out a secret signal. They will contact us when they have time. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang also understood. The other party naturally couldn't do business openly. They had to wait for an opportunity. The waiting time varies from 2 hours to a month. We are not sure when they will appear. If they were lucky, they would appear immediately. If they were unlucky, they could only wait here. If you want to enter, I think they will be very against it when they hear the news. I'm afraid there's nothing we can do to help. Lu Jin had a look of regret on his face. They had only made a simple deal and their friendship was not deep at all. If he wanted the other party to help him with such a favor, there was no way he could do it. Leave the rest to us. It's enough that you can bring us here, Di Beichen said slowly. End of chapter. Chapter 7195. Seeing that Di Beichen was very reasonable, Lu Jin and the others breathed a sigh of relief. At the same time, they couldn't help but want to do something for them, but after thinking about it, it seemed that there was nothing they could do to help. In terms of capital to discuss business, Di Beichen was undoubtedly much better than them. Everyone slowly passed through the canyon. While passing through the canyon, Di Beichen also noticed a very powerful restriction in front of them. This restriction was definitely stronger than any restriction they had seen before. Just from the faint fluctuations it emitted, they felt a kind of palpitating feeling, as if even their breathing had become stifled. At this moment, Yang Tianzhao no longer said that he didn't know Di Beichen. Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang saved him, his expression was still occasionally twisted, but his attitude was no longer as repulsive as before. Cuckoo, Lu Jin stopped at the back of the canyon. He pretended to be a cuckoo bird and called out a few special melodies before leading everyone to sit down at the side. Next, we just have to wait for news. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly and looked at a cave entrance not far away. She also understood that the other party should be making a deal with them from here. What do you plan to do after meeting them? Lu Jin asked with concern. First, we'll see if we can make a deal with them. If the cooperation is successful, that would naturally be the best, but if it isn't, noticing a touch of coldness quietly flashing through Di Beichen's eyes, Lu Jin couldn't help but change his expression and hurriedly said, I've come into contact with those two people. They are very strong. If we really fight, I'm afraid this place will be very dangerous. Not to mention that we may not be able to kill them. The most important thing is that if we make too much noise and attract other people here, it will be terrible. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang also understood Lu Jin's worries. Don't worry, we won't do such a thing unless we have no other choice. We also don't want to affect you. I'm not worried that you will affect us, but that if you do, you won't have a way to go in. Lu Jin had a serious expression on his face. Unknowingly, he had already treated Di Beichen and Li Tianlan as his best friends. He was thinking for them from the bottom of his heart. Although we can see a cave there, we can't go in with our current situation. The only way is in the hands of the two people who do business with me, so it's impossible to force your way in. You have to think carefully about how to persuade them. Then do you know what they are interested in? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. She also understood that if she could persuade the other party, it would undoubtedly be for the best. After entering, they would have one more helper. After all, they knew nothing about the crossing immortal domain. If they barged in directly, it would be very dangerous. Every time we come here to trade, we mainly trade for blood spirit stones because there are very few blood spirit stone mines here. Most of them are devouring spirit stone mines. In the past, when the crossing celestial domain was not sealed, this was a good place and a lucrative job. But ever since it was sealed, their channels to obtain blood spirit stones have become much smaller, so blood spirit stones are very important to them. In addition, medicinal pills are also very important. Yang Tianzhao added, as long as it's something a cultivator needs, they need it because it's not enough for them to be self-sufficient. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. If that's all, then there's no problem. End of chapter. Chapter 7196. We also know that you have no problem in this aspect. Jiang Zhen laughed. Among us, the two of you are the richest. That's true, but I actually don't know if they have the ability to bring you in. As for how to get out after entering, that's even more troublesome. Lu Jin had a difficult expression. After entering, are you planning to leave after finding the person you're looking for? Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen glanced at each other. A while ago they had also returned to their families. Xiao Sou had appeared once again and wanted to make a move on their family. Fortunately, Di Xiaofeng was already prepared and didn't let her succeed. However, Xiao Sou had an escape talisman in her hand, so she managed to escape. The moment they knew about the escape talisman, they were even more certain that Xiao Sou had come to the upper realm. In the upper realm, the number of escape talismans was pitifully low. After the celestial realm, the chaotic celestial realm, and the crossing celestial realm, Xiao Sou would most likely appear in the crossing celestial realm. However, based on Xiao Sou's ability to come and go as she pleased, it would take them some effort to find her even if they entered the crossing celestial realm. I'm afraid it won't be easy for us to find the person we're looking for. We should spend some time inside. You don't have to worry about us. Once we're done, we'll find a way to leave, Bailey Hongzhuang said. Lu Jin nodded slightly. Since that's the case, we won't wait for you outside. Okay. Do you still remember the route you'll take? This is the safest route. After saying this, Lu Jin suddenly felt that his words were a little redundant. Based on how Di Beichen was walking in the heavenly moat as if it was flat ground, no matter which route he took, he wouldn't be in any danger. Lu Jin, you're really wishy-washy now. Young Master Di is so powerful, why do you need to worry about him? Jiang Zhen looked at Lu Jin in disdain. He didn't realize that this guy was so wishy-washy. Lu Jin coughed dryly. He's my son's savior. What's wrong with being concerned about him? Come on. After a round of discussion, Bailey Hongzhuang and Gu Shijiu understood that it was best to lure them with benefits. As long as the other party had a way and the benefits they offered were enticing enough, the other party should agree. Next, Di Beichen and the rest began to wait outside. No one knew when the people inside would appear. In fact, because their journey had been too easy, they had arrived much earlier than usual. It was inevitable that they would have to wait for a few more days. While they were waiting, Gong Jun had already appeared in the heavenly moat. Normally he was extremely timid, but when he walked in this natural chasm, he was extremely calm. All the demons retreated when they saw him, directly opening up a wide path for him. Unknowingly, half a month had passed. Bailey Hongzhuang had been cultivating in peace while waiting for the movement inside. During this period of time, it was too quiet inside. There wasn't even the slightest bit of movement. Ta-ta. At this moment they vaguely heard the sound of footsteps. Hearing this sound, everyone exited their cultivation state and hurriedly looked towards the entrance of the cave. Ta-ta-ta. The sound of the footsteps was getting closer and closer. Everyone looked at each other and began to think of what to say next. You're here? A low and rough voice slowly sounded from the back of the cave. End of chapter. Chapter 7197. Hearing this familiar voice, Lu Jin and the others took a few steps forward. Big Brother Ji, we're here. You're early this time. The man's indifferent voice sounded. Unlike Lu Jin and the others' friendliness, he appeared quite cold. The journey was smooth this time, so we arrived early. Soon 2 figures appeared. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the 2 figures in front of her. Lu Jin had already introduced them to her in detail. The middle-aged man in the lead was called Ji Chuan, and he was a steward here. The other young man with a protruding mouth and ape-like cheeks was Gu Jian. Ji Chuan was a steady person and didn't talk much. Gu Jian, on the other hand, was very much like a businessman. He was the one who negotiated the price every time. In fact, they didn't like Gu Jian because he was too shrewd. Every time he would maximize the benefits. Unfortunately, they weren't good at negotiating, so they always suffered losses in this aspect. They felt helpless about this, but there was no other way. Why have you changed your people? Ji Chuan couldn't help but frown when he noticed Di Beichen and Lu Jin behind Lu Jin. Something happened to Su Shun and he's now dead. We're not strong enough to rely on just the three of us, so we recruited 2 people, Lu Jin explained. Ji Chuan nodded slightly. He wasn't the least bit interested in how Su Shun died. His gaze only lingered on Di Beichen and Lu Jin for a moment. At a glance, he could tell that these 2 were quite extraordinary. At least, when they stood together with Lu Jin and the others, they were like cranes in a flock of chickens. No matter how he looked at them, they were a bit out of place. Therefore, he felt that the situation was a bit strange. I don't care about your business, but since this is a long-term business, you'd better find someone you can trust, Ji Chuan calmly reminded them. Di Beichen and the others were all smart people. Even if it was just a sentence, they understood the deeper meaning behind it. Big brother Ji, don't worry. We won't make any mistakes. That's good. Have you brought the things? Ji Chuan asked. I brought them all. Lu Jin took out his Chengkuan bag. Just like last time, the blood spirit stones are all here. It's already been a year and the market has changed. Isn't it a little inappropriate to still use the same price as last year? Gu Jian's voice rang out. He glanced at Lu Jin with some displeasure, but his gaze was more focused on Bailey Hongzhuang. Big brother Gu, it's only been a year. You just raised the price the last time. Don't tell me you're going to raise it again this time? Lu Jin's expression was a little ugly. Almost every time he saw Gu Jian, this guy would have such thoughts. If it weren't for the fact that they still had to rely on this business, he really didn't want to bother with this annoying guy. It's only natural for business to get better and better with each passing year. How could it get worse and worse with each passing year? Gu Jian looked indifferent. Don't think that we don't know anything about the outside world just because we're in the crossing immortal domain. In my opinion, the market outside is not bad. You guys are earning more. Not at all. Jiang Zhen hurriedly said, Big brother Gu, the business outside is not good now. Su Shen even lost his life. We've earned a lot of money with the price rising year after year. Don't pretend to be pitiful. I didn't raise the price that much. You should know that we're taking a big risk. Chapter 7198. When Bailey Hongzhuang saw Gu Jian's expression, she understood what Lu Jin meant. He was truly afraid of this guy. This guy was undoubtedly profit-driven. He was relying on the fact that he had devouring spirit stones to raise the price at will. The market outside hasn't been good these past few years. Plus, we can't let news of what happened in the crossing immortal region spread. It's already hard enough for us to keep this a secret. We don't dare to sell devouring spirit stones in a high-profile manner, so the price has naturally been affected, said Bailey Hongzhuang. When Bailey Hongzhuang spoke, Gu Jian's interest was piqued. I didn't expect this young lady to be so good at talking. However, I'm afraid these words aren't enough to swindle me. But, since you're so beautiful, I can consider it. Lu Jin and the others subconsciously looked at Di Beichen. As men, they naturally understood the meaning behind Gu Jian's gaze. Di Beichen's eyes narrowed and his eyes, which were as deep as the sea, became even more bottomless. He took a step forward, and his calm face did not reveal any emotional fluctuations. Aside from devouring spirit stones, we have another business deal we wish to do with the 2 of you. The rewards are quite generous. Would you be interested? Both Ji Chuan and Gu Jian were surprised. What business deal? We want to enter the crossing immortal region. Ji Chuan and Lu Jin's expressions changed. Kid, I'm afraid you don't know enough about the crossing immortal region. Not just anyone can enter this place. We know. That's why we want to do business with you. Impossible, said Ji Chuan coldly. We'll pay you handsomely. Not only will we give you blood spirit stones, but we'll also give you medicinal pills. Di Beichen did not pay attention to the other party's refusal, and continued to speak of his own price. We can guarantee that we will never reveal half a word about your situation. How much? Asked Gu Jian. Gu Jian. Ji Chuan reprimanded him, his face filled with displeasure. It's even more abundant than all the blood spirit stones you've brought with you this time. We don't need spirit devouring stones. We just want to go in, Di Beichen said. You should know that the entrance to the Crossing Celestial region has been sealed. No one from the Crossing Celestial region is allowed to leave. Similarly, no one is allowed to enter, Gu Jian said slowly. Of course I've heard of this news, but there are always exceptions to everything. Just like this spirit-devouring stone business, everything is negotiable. Di Beichen's face was filled with a confident smile. From the moment that Gu Jian did not immediately refuse him, he understood that this matter was not without discussion. It was just that he needed to reach the price that the other party needed. You're smart, but you should know that our business is done in secret. As long as we're careful, others won't be able to find any clues. But 2 living people went in without any reason. We have the face change pill? Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. Hearing this, Ji Chuan and Gu Jian looked at each other with uncertainty. I believe that you two will have a way. Di Beichen took out his Cosmos pouch. This is your reward. You can take a look. Gu Jian took the Cosmos pouch. After glancing at it, his eyes lit up. The reward was even more generous than he'd imagined. He really didn't expect these 2 youngsters to be so rich. It still won't work. Ji Chuan's face was ashen. This was simply too risky. If they weren't careful, they'd both lose their lives. However, Gu Jian quietly pulled Ji Chuan to the side. End of chapter. Chapter 7199. Gu Jian, you should know that we can't do this. Once word gets out, we'll be finished. Ji Chuan's face was gloomy and filled with displeasure. Gu Jian had always been the type of person who couldn't move when he saw money, but he hadn't thought about the price of this. Big brother Ji, don't get angry. Let me explain, Gu Jian chuckled. What else is there to say? Those 2 are so young and they aren't that strong, but they have quite a bit of wealth. The way I see it, they aren't even in the same group as Lu Jin's group. Lu Jin just brought them here after paying them. We can agree to take their things. Once we're in, we can do whatever we want with them. Gu Jian smiled. Think about it. They've already paid us so handsomely, so there's no need to even mention what they have on them. Once we get our hands on those cultivation resources, we might be able to grow even stronger. Hearing this, Ji Chuan's frown gradually relaxed. Won't there be repercussions if we do this? Don't tell me the 2 of us aren't strong enough to beat them? That's just too ridiculous. Gu Jian was extremely confident. We don't often run into fat sheep like them. Haven't you been in trouble recently? Perhaps this is an opportunity given to us by the heavens. It'd be a pity if we don't seize it. Hesitation flashed through Ji Chuan's eyes, but in the end he nodded. All right, then we'll do as you say. It's best if Lu Jin and the others don't find out about this, lest new problems crop up. Don't worry, big brother Ji. I know what to do. Gu Jian patted his chest, his smile growing increasingly smug. But that woman. Noticing Gu Jian's expression, Ji Chuan understood what he was thinking. He said helplessly, you can play but don't cause trouble. No problem. Gu Jian rubbed his hands, his eyes filled with desire. He'd never seen such a beautiful woman before. Thinking about how he'd have to kill her soon, he felt it was a bit of a pity. However, there was nothing else he could do. Not long after, Ji Chuan and Gu Jian returned. We can consider accepting your business, but you have to tell us why you want to enter the immortal region. We want to find someone. Looking for someone? Most of the ascended cultivators are in the Crossing Celestial domain, Di Beichen said calmly. Ji Chuan and Gu Jian also understood. They had been here for a long time, so it wasn't like they hadn't seen this kind of thing before. Many people's relatives would come to the Crossing Immortal domain after they ascended. However, it was rare for these 2 people to dare to come here. Alright, I agree, Gu Jian said. Hearing this, Lu Jin and the others were involuntarily stunned. From the way they saw it, this was an extremely crazy request. It was unlikely that the Ji Chuan duo would agree to it. However, the situation was much better than what they had expected. The 2 of them agreed without much consideration, which made them feel very strange. Gu Jian also realized that his promise was a little too simple, and said, after you go in, you have to listen to us. It just so happens that some of our people died. You can disguise yourself as them, and you must be careful not to be discovered by others. Do you understand? End of chapter. Chapter 7200. Boss, wait for me. Understood. Di Beichen nodded. We definitely won't be discovered by others. Gu Jian nodded, revealing a satisfied expression. Ji Chuan's expression was still calm. Just follow us. Because of Di Beichen's resources, Gu Jian didn't continue to raise the price. After all, he couldn't raise the price by much. It wasn't as lucrative as these 2 fat sheep. All right, you can follow us in now, Ji Chuan said slowly. Wait a moment. Lu Jin stepped forward with a smile on his face. I have a few words to say to them. Please wait a moment. Ji Chuan frowned. Hurry up. Lu Jin pulled Di Baichen and Yang Zhao to the back. Gu Jian agreed a little too quickly this time. There must be something fishy going on. I think you should be careful. That's right. Gu Jian isn't a good person. Seeing you take out so many things, he must be tempted. Since he agreed so quickly and didn't even have the slightest intention of asking for a price, it's very likely that he's planning to catch us all in one fell swoop. Yang Tianzhao had a worried expression. He usually didn't want to deal with Gu Jian, but he could see that this guy was definitely someone who would ask for a sky-high price. His sudden change in attitude meant that there was a big problem in itself. Most importantly, he knew what Gu Jian's gaze meant when he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. This time it wouldn't be so simple. Be careful of Gu Jian. He's much more troublesome than Ji Chuan, Jiang Jin said. Looking at the three's worried expressions, Di Baichen nodded slightly. A cold light flashed in his eyes. We understand. Don't worry, we'll act according to the situation. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Seeing that the two didn't intend to give up, Lu Jin nodded. He understood that no matter what kind of danger they faced, they wouldn't be able to stop them. However, with their strength they should have a way. Then take care of yourselves. If you come back in the future, you must pay us a visit. We definitely will. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Yang Zhao returned, Ji Chuan said, Can we go now? Sure. However, just as the two of them entered, a voice rang out from behind. Boss, wait for me. Almost as soon as Ji Chuan closed the hole, a round figure squeezed in. The sudden turn of events was beyond everyone's expectations. Lu Jin and the others who were outside were dumbfounded. They didn't even have time to react when they suddenly saw a figure rush in. Who was that? Lu Jin could not help but be startled. He had only vaguely noticed a figure rushing in, but he did not even get a clear look at the person's appearance. I don't know. Jiang Zhen looked confused. But didn't Mrs. D say that young Master D has a little brother? This guy was shouting Bosk as he rushed in. Could he be that person? This guy's appearance is really strange. Yang Tianzhao rubbed his nose with a complicated expression. If it's really young Master D's men, then that's not bad. I keep having the feeling that Gu Jian and the others are up to no good. One more person means one more guarantee. I hope so. Lu Jin nodded. Other than this possibility, they really couldn't think of any other possibility. After all, it was impossible for people from the crossing immortal domain to appear outside. End of chapter. Chapter 7201. Translator, Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations dead for sure. Di Baichen and Bailey Hongzhuang were astonished when they heard the voice. When they turned around and saw Gong Jun appear behind them, their expressions became even stranger. Gong Jun, when did you get here? Boss, sister-in-law, I finally found you. Gong Jun narrowed his eyes with a happy expression. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen looked at each other. Didn't this guy say that he was going to stay in Xi'an City to manage the Immortal Treasure Pavilion? How did he suddenly appear here? Most importantly, how did this guy find this place? Luckily I was fast, otherwise I would have been locked outside. Gong Jun said excitedly. What's going on? Ji Chuan's expression became gloomy. This guy's sudden appearance was clearly beyond their expectations. This guy was clearly a variable that ruined their plan. Even though Di Baichen and Ji Chuan still had a lot of doubts about Gong Jun, the most important thing right now was to deal with Ji Chuan and Ji Chuan. They could only put their doubts aside for now. He's our friend. Di Baichen replied. We only agreed to let the two of you in. We didn't agree to let this guy in. Gu Jian said coldly. Since you're already here, then forget it. We'll provide you with the resources you need. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said. Gong Jun's sudden appearance was out of everyone's expectations. However, this wasn't a bad thing. If they were together, they could take care of each other. Hearing this, Ji Chuan and Gu Jian's expressions were still unhappy, but they didn't continue to object. Boss, what's going on? Gong Jun had a curious look on his face. Di Baichen gave Gong Jun a meaningful glance. Gong Jun closed his mouth and looked at the two people in front of him. Big Brother Ji, what should we pay attention to after entering the crossing immortal domain? Di Baichen looked around and asked. There are many cultivators in the crossing celestial domain. Most of them have yet to break through to the elementary celestial stage. Most of them are in the spirit-devouring mine. Their main job is to mine. Other than that, there were also a few other factions, all of which were long-established factions. This time, you are going to pretend to be the cultivators in the spirit-devouring mine. They lost their lives a while ago, so you shouldn't be discovered if you pretend to be them. I wonder if it's convenient for us to find someone in this spirit-devouring mine? That will depend on your own abilities. If your luck is good, you can still find it. I heard that you can't stay in the spirit-devouring mine for too long. If you stay in it for too long, your spiritual power will decline. Bailey Hongzhuang pretended to be puzzled and asked. Those are just rumors. You will understand after entering the spirit-devouring mine. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two exchanged glances. Their hearts were filled with disdain. They knew the situation in the spirit-devouring mine very well. It seemed like these two fellows were planning to throw them into the spirit-devouring mine again. However, it was not that easy to do so. Find a suitable place later and kill the two of them. Di Beichen sent a voice transmission. Bailey Hongzhuang was stunned when she heard that. She did not expect Di Beichen to kill the two of them directly. If we kill them, we won't know the situation here. It will be easier for us to find someone if we pretend to be them. Di Beichen's eyes were cold. His killing intent was boiling in his heart. He had already made up his mind when he saw Gu Jian looking at Hongzhuang. This guy will definitely die. End of chapter. Chapter 7202. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. That's a good idea, but we'll have to be careful with our disguises. As the manager of this place, Ji Chuan must have come into contact with a lot of people. They didn't know anything about these two, yet they had to pretend to be them, so they had to be careful. Otherwise they would be exposed. There will be a way, Di Beichen said confidently. Gong Jun noticed his boss's expression and had a guess in his heart. Under the guidance of Ji Chuan and Gu Jian, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two found that the road was getting more and more remote, so they had an idea. When they reached a very remote place where others wouldn't notice, Di Beichen took the lead and stopped. It's very safe here. A low and magnetic voice sounded. Hearing this voice, Ji Chuan and Gu Jian couldn't help but turn around and look at Di Beichen with a complicated expression. No need to go any further. If there's anything to solve it here. Bailey Hongzhuang also said. At this moment, Ji Chuan and Gu Jian couldn't help but be startled. They immediately understood that these fellows had already guessed their plans. Now that they actually dared to take the initiative to say such words, it was likely that these three fellows were already prepared. What do you mean by that? Gu Jian asked, feigning ignorance. What do I mean? Di Beichen's lips curled up and he threw out a punch at lightning speed. I want you dead. Bailey Hongzhuang and Gong Jun didn't expect Di Beichen to directly attack without saying anything, but after realizing it, the two also rushed up. Suddenly taking a punch, Gu Jian's expression became very ugly. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. You dare to attack me, boy, you're courting death. Bang. Di Beichen didn't even bother to pay attention to him, and coolly kicked out with his leg. Gu Jian's body fell heavily to the ground, and his face suddenly became a bit paler. The first move could be said to be a sneak attack, but the second move could still easily hit him. It was clear that the other party's strength was not weaker than his. Bailey Hongzhuang and Gong Jun attacked Ji Chuan together. According to Lu Jin's introduction, Ji Chuan seemed to be stronger than Gu Jian. Since they had decided to take action, they naturally couldn't leave anyone alive. Ji Chuan was also aware of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two's plan. He originally thought that the other party was a small sheep that could be easily dealt with, but he didn't expect that the other party also had the idea of killing them. Bang bang bang. The essence power in Bailey Hongzhuang's body surged out, and the charged-up attack was launched without any hesitation. What they wanted was a quick victory, and a sneak attack was the most convenient method. Ji Chuan's figure flashed and dodged, but he didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang had already discovered his trajectory and ruthlessly punched him. Boom. With a strike of her hand, Bailey Hongzhuang took advantage of Ji Chuan's body and pinched his chin with one hand, and stuffed a pill into his mouth. Ji Chuan wanted to spit out the pill, but Bailey Hongzhuang pinched his chin and didn't give him any chance. What did you feed me? Ji Chuan's face was gloomy as he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, and his eyes were full of resentment. Big brother Ji, we've already reached this point, why are you still asking such an idiotic question? Bailey Hongzhuang ridiculed. Ji Chuan's heart turned cold and his killing intent surged. I'll kill you all. I'm afraid you don't have the ability. Bailey Hongzhuang attacked again and kicked Ji Chuan to the mountain wall. End of chapter. Chapter 7203. Ji Chuan was indeed in the elementary celestial stage, but after this exchange, Bailey Hongzhuang understood that the other party had not fought for a long time, and his combat strength was not comparable to an ordinary elementary celestial stage cultivator. She had not broken through to the elementary celestial stage for long, but it was obvious that the other party was not her match. However, this was a good thing as it saved them so much effort. Sister-in-law is really amazing. Gong Jun maintained the posture of a younger brother as he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a face full of worship. He wanted to take the opportunity to sneak attack, but he found that after the first move, the rest did not need his help at all. Sister-in-law had already solved all of it, neat and tidy, without the slightest hesitation. The corners of Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up slightly, and she noticed that there was no other movement around. Presumably, no one had noticed them, so she was relieved and turned to look at Di Beichen. Both of them were stunned when they saw what was inside. Because Gu Jian was almost beaten into a pile of mud by Di Beichen. At this moment, he was lying limply on the ground, with blood from his nose and teeth mixed together. His miserable appearance was simply unbearable to look at. Gong Jun swallowed a mouthful of saliva. What kind of hatred and resentment did he have? Stop. Stop. Gu Jian panted heavily, hoping that Di Beichen could stop. Boss, this guy will die if you continue to beat him. Gong Jun could not help but speak up. After following Boss for so long, he had never seen Boss like this. It seemed that this Gu Jian was really not an ordinary hateful person, to be able to make Boss so angry. Only then did Di Beichen stop. His handsome face did not have the slightest bit of ferociousness, and his cloud-like appearance made it impossible to connect him with what he had just done. Gu Jian was finally able to breathe a sigh of relief, lying on the ground and almost unable to get up. What do you want to do? On the side, Ji Chuan had already been tied up by Gong Jun. Do you know Xiao Sou? Di Beichen asked at the same time taking out a portrait. Never heard of her. Ji Chuan replied, but when he saw the person in the portrait, his expression changed for a moment. Di Beichen also caught the change in Ji Chuan's expression and said, "You've seen her, right? Don't tell him." Gu Jian's weak voice came from the side. As soon as he said that, Di Beichen raised his right hand, and a sword light flashed, directly piercing through Gu Jian's forehead. Now you can speak. Di Beichen's voice was indifferent. Ji Chuan's eyes widened. Although he had anticipated that something like this would happen, seeing Gu Jian die with his own eyes was still very hard for him to accept. Even if I say it, I will still die. Why should I say it? Indeed. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows, but you can choose a faster way to die. Noticing the quick-wittedness and craftiness in the woman's eyes, Ji Chuan felt a chill from the bottom of his heart. He knew that this woman must be an alchemist and did not doubt the truth of her words. I think I've seen this woman before, but she's not called by that name. What's her name now? I don't know. What are you usually responsible for? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Since they were going to disguise themselves as Ji Chuan and Ji Chuan, they had to know what they usually did to avoid being exposed. Someone is coming from behind. Ji Chuan suddenly said. Hearing this voice, the three subconsciously turned their heads, but found no one behind them. End of chapter. Chapter 7204. When the three of them turned around again, Ji Chuan had already taken the opportunity to bite the snake and commit suicide. Seeing this, the three of them couldn't help but sigh. It was truly a pity. Since you don't want to talk, then die in peace. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her right hand slightly and controlled a strand of spiritual energy. If one took a closer look, they would discover that this was a miniature version of Ji Chuan. A flame appeared between the woman's slender fingers, burning the ball of mental energy. The shrunken version of Ji Chuan immediately screamed. He hurriedly said, "Let me live and I'll tell you everything I know." No need. Bailey Hongzhuang looked indifferent. I never give people a second chance. The flames suddenly increased in intensity, evaporating the spiritual energy into nothingness. Master, wouldn't it be a pity to kill him just like that? Xiao He asked hesitantly. There's nothing to feel pity about. He already hates us to death. Even if he tells us, it might not be the truth. Rather than being misled by the other party's lies, it would be safer for them to explore on their own. Sister-in-law is right. These two fellows are so cunning. They will definitely cause trouble. Gong Jun nodded repeatedly. However, I think what the old guy said before should be true. He really did see the person you're looking for. That's right. Di Beichen's eyes darkened. They had always thought that Xiao Sou might have been here, and now it was proven that their judgment was not wrong. Bailey Hongzhuang took out the corpse-dissolving water and cleaned up the two corpses. She then looked at their storage rings and smiled faintly. They didn't have many cultivation resources, but they did have a lot of devouring spirit stones. The effect of the spirit-devouring stone was to increase one's mental strength. Increasing one's mental strength was of great help to a cultivator. However, it was not enough to increase one's mental strength alone. Let's go. Di Baichen took the appearance change pill and changed into Ji Chuan's appearance, while Bailey Hongzhuang changed into Gu Jian's appearance. Gong Jun looked at the tacit understanding between the two of them and then looked at himself. Boss, you both changed. What about me? Let's talk about it when we find a suitable candidate, Di Baichen said. Currently, they didn't know much about the crossing immortal domain. They didn't even know about Ji Chuan's daily habits, words and actions. It wouldn't be easy for them to disguise themselves. Logically speaking, there should be people continuously ascending here. You can just pretend to be a cultivator who has just ascended. Gong Jun nodded slightly. That's good too. I feel more comfortable looking at myself like this. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen looked at each other. It had to be said that their disguises did make them uncomfortable. By the way, boss, you were so ruthless to Gu Jian just now. Is it because he has some bad intentions towards sister-in-law? Gong Jun moved to Di Baichen's side with curiosity written all over his face. Di Baichen glanced at him indifferently. Bailey Hongzhuang said, Gong Jun, don't make wild guesses. Gu Jian is a sly guy. You can't believe what he says. Sister-in-law, there's something you don't know. Gong Jun chuckled. It's not like we haven't met a sly old man like him. Have you ever seen boss so angry? Chapter 7205. Boss, am I right? Gong Jun teased. Di Baichen looked at the curious Gong Jun. Why don't you tell me how you got here? I stayed in Xi'an City for a while. I didn't find it interesting when all of you weren't around. Moreover, I noticed that someone was looking for you. I was worried about your safety, so I came here. Someone was looking for us? Gong Jun nodded slightly. I only found out about this later on. It wasn't until someone asked about you that the news reached me. Boss, do you remember Qing Ji whom you killed in Level Peak City? I remember. Di Baichen nodded. Her people came for revenge? That should be the case. Gong Jun nodded. Qing Ji came from the Immortal Region, so those people came from the Immortal Region as well. When I sensed that something was wrong, I went into hiding. However, with their methods, I felt that it was only a matter of time before they found you. I was worried that you would be in danger, so I came to warn you. Bailey Hongzhuang finally understood. Then how did you cross the heavenly moat? When I passed by the town, I saw an immortal treasure pavilion. I knew that you must have been there. The people in the town were very friendly too. When they found out that I was with you, they told me. Speaking of which, it was strange. They said that the heavenly moat was very dangerous, but I don't think it was as dangerous as they said. The people in the town told you so easily? Of course it wasn't that easy. However, I have my ways. Gong Jun smiled awkwardly. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't ask any more questions. However, she already knew what was going on. This fella always had a way of dealing with people. With his methods of gathering information and his relationship with them, it wasn't difficult for him to find out everything from the people in the town. Hey boss, you're changing the topic. Gong Jun suddenly remembered that his boss hadn't answered his question. However, Di Baichen had already walked forward and ignored the question. Seeing this, Gong Jun winked at Bailey Hongzhuang and said, It's a silent agreement, Bailey Hongzhuang. As the three of them walked forward, they had already come up with an excuse. If the other party didn't ask, they didn't have to answer. If they did, they would say that they were new miners. There were many cultivators mining in the crossing immortal domain. One more person should not attract too much attention. Fortunately, this road led out and there weren't many forks, so there was no need to worry about going the wrong way. After walking for a while, they realized that this cave was really remote. Even Ji Chuan and Ji Yi had to spend quite a bit of time to get here. It's no wonder that no one has discovered this place even after doing business for so many years. Normally, very few people would come to this place. Gong Jun looked around. This was a desolate place where few people would come. That's good. The fewer people who know about this place, the better. Bailey Hongzhuang said, but if we kill Ji Chuan and Lu Jin, what will happen to their business in the future? They'll find someone else to take their place. Di Baichen said. If that's the case, then that's for the best. They don't want to deal with Gu Jian anymore. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Lu Jin and the others were already very tired of dealing with Gu Jian. Unfortunately, they didn't have any other choice. If they could find someone reliable to take over, it would indeed be a good thing. It wasn't until they had walked a certain distance that they saw traces of people. Chapter 7206. One after another, familiar yet unfamiliar minds appeared in front of the three of them. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Jinjin were no strangers to the spirit-devouring mine. Back then, being forced to mine was something that left a deep impression on them. However, the mines in front of them were much larger than the ones they were in back then. As the two of them walked closer, they noticed that many cultivators were shuttling back and forth in the mines. Their eyes were filled with despair and helplessness, but most of them were numb. Hurry up and get to work. If you can't complete today's task, you'll be punished. The supervisor stood at the entrance of the mine with a whip in his hand and scolded fiercely. Meanwhile, the figures walked into the mine like puppets without souls. Gong Jun was speechless when he saw this. Aren't these guys a little too cruel? There's no spirit-devouring mine in the chaotic immortal realm, so you don't know much about this situation, Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. They had experienced this before, but the entire crossing immortal realm was like this. It was undoubtedly very difficult to change everything. Previously, I didn't understand why the immortal realm closed the entrance to the crossing immortal realm. Now I completely understand. They simply couldn't find suitable people to mine here, so they simply kept all the ascended cultivators here as slaves to mine. Gong Jun looked at this scene with a frown. No matter who it was, they would be shocked when they saw this. Xiao Sou can travel between the crossing immortal realm and the upper realm. I'm sure her identity here is not bad. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Ji Chuan was sure that Xiao Sou had been here before, so it was easy to deduce many things. Fortunately, they were pretending to be Ji Chuan and Di Jinjin. With the identity of the supervisor, it was undoubtedly more convenient for them to do things. Ji Chuan, you're back. A middle-aged man walked up to Ji Chuan with a familiar smile on his face. Yes, Di Beichen said. The man pulled Ji Chuan to the side and said in a low voice, "How was it? Is the deal done?" Upon hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's expressions changed. The man didn't look like he was trying to trick them. Instead, he looked like he really knew about this matter. It seemed that Ji Chuan wasn't the only one who knew about this transaction. It was just that each time this matter was handled by the two of them. Di Beichen pondered for a moment and said in a deep voice, "We'll talk about it when we get back." The man smiled and nodded. "All right, I'll look for you tonight." "Oh right, where did this kid come from?" Just as the man was about to leave, he noticed Gong Jun behind him, and a look of doubt appeared in his eyes. "Mining?" Bailey Hongzhuang said nonchalantly. Hearing this, the man looked at Gong Jun and said with a smile, "Your luck is really good. It just so happens that the quota for the mine can be filled. This month, our team's results may not be as good as yours." "That's not necessarily the case," Di Beichen said with a calm face. "You really have the same temper as before. Even when you say this kind of thing, you still look so serious." The man shook his head helplessly and waved his hand as he walked away. After the man left, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two sighed in relief. At least from the man's reaction, they didn't reveal anything. "Boss, do I really have to go mining?" Gong Jun's face fell. "I don't want to go mining." End of chapter. Chapter 7207. There's no other way now. Just think of it as losing weight, Di Beichen said. Gong Jun had a bitter look on his face. "Boss, don't be like this. I think my current body shape is quite perfect. Exercising is good for you." Gong Jun swore in his heart that Boss was definitely using his position to avenge a personal grudge. Just because of his big mouth just now, don't worry, nothing will happen. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and said, "We have a lot of devouring spirit stones here. You can find a remote place in the mine and don't be noticed by others. When we find the right opportunity, we will rescue you from the mine." Gong Jun looked at Bailey Hongzhuang touched. "Sister-in-law, I know you're the kindest." Bailey Hongzhuang looked around. "But, what we need to figure out now is where the mine we manage is located." Di Beichen took out a token in his hand and said, "If I'm not wrong, the 13th mine should be the place we want to go. It's much easier now that you know where it is." Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. She had noticed that there were corresponding labels on these mines. Currently they were in Mine 7. Presumably, they would be able to find Mine 13 if they walked a little further. "When we get close to mine number 13, I'm sure we'll run into other acquaintances. We'll try to get information from them. Just be careful not to expose ourselves at night." Bailey Hongzhuang kept thinking in her mind. Granny Hua had taught her a lot of ways to make pills and potions. She didn't know if there was a way to make people answer questions unconsciously. She vaguely remembered hearing about it before, but she usually didn't pay much attention to it, so she couldn't remember it at the moment. "Don't worry, I won't be seen through so easily." Di Beichen had a confident look on his face. "Ji Chuan doesn't talk much to begin with. You just need to stay calm." but you have to act like Gu Jian, who is cunning. Thinking of this, Di Beichen looked at Gong Jun and said, "You should teach Hong Zhuang this." Hearing this, Gong Jun nodded repeatedly. "You should ask me about this kind of thing. I'm the best at it." Bailey Hong Zhuang. "Do you really think I'm praising you?" In my opinion, with Gu Jian's character of taking advantage of others, when that person comes to look for you at night, you have to deliberately pretend that you want to take an extra share. This way you won't be easily seen through. Gong Jun explained a lot to Bailey Hong Zhuang based on the situation, showing the essence of a profiteer vividly. "Anyway, that Gu Jian doesn't look likable. You just have to act like this," Gong Jun said. Bailey Hong Zhuang frowned slightly. "I think after we find a way to get you out of the mine, you can just pretend to be Gu Jian. His character is really suitable for you to pretend to be him." Gong Jun smiled. "Of course." As the three of them got closer and closer to the No. 13 mine, several people on the way nodded at them when they saw them. The two of them nodded and walked slowly. When they arrived at the number 13 mine, a cultivator holding a whip came over. "Manager G, you're back." Di Beichen glanced at the man and said, "Let this boy enter the mine." "Okay." The man's face was full of smiles. "I'll do it right away." Then he turned to look at Gong Jun. "Kid, come with me." Chapter 7208. Gong Jun looked at the two with tears in his eyes. He was about to start his mining career. "Wait." Di Beichen's voice rang out. The man and Gong Jun both turned their heads. The latter looked at Di Beichen expectantly, hoping to find a reason to keep him. "Go to my tent and pour me a cup of tea." Di Beichen looked at the man beside him. Hearing this, the man could not help but look at Di Beichen in surprise. He did not expect such an order. "Is there a problem?" Di Beichen raised his eyebrows. No. The man quickly waved his hand. "I'll go now." Di Beichen nodded slightly. "Do a good job." The man's eyes lit up. When he heard this, it was as if he had been injected with chicken blood. He looked unusually excited and walked toward the tent not far away. Bailey Hong Zhuang looked in the direction the man left and quietly gave Di Beichen a thumbs up. If it were not for this guy leading the way, they would not have even found the tent. It would have been troublesome then. Gong Jun restrained his feelings of gratitude. As expected, he was still too naive. Although the people in the mine don't know much, you can try to find out more. If you gather any useful information, remember to tell us. Gong Jun sighed. "Okay. Don't pretend to be wronged. This environment is not a problem for you at all." Di Beichen glanced at Gong Hun indifferently and said, "This guy was best at mixing in the crowd to gather information. Without the daily task, he would not be able to hold his tongue even if he wanted to talk to someone." Gong Jun scratched his head. "That's true. This portrait is for you. We are looking for this woman." Di Beichen took out the portraits and handed them to Gong Jun. Previously, the Di family had collected a lot of these portraits when they were searching for Xiao Sou. He didn't expect that they would come in handy here. "Boss, don't worry. I'll do my best to gather information." Soon, the man rushed out of the tent and handed 2 cups of tea to Di Beichen and Bailey Hong Zhuang. "Steward G, Steward Gu, the tea is here." Di Beichen took the tea and nodded with satisfaction. "Okay, you can go back to work." "Yes." The man's face was full of smiles. He called for Gong Jun and went near the mine. "Come, let's enter the tent first." Di Beichen looked around. After making sure that no one was paying attention to them, he entered the tent with Bailey Hong Zhuang. Most of the cultivators here are below the elementary celestial stage. However, the steward we met today is also at the elementary celestial stage. I think that the stewards here are not weak, so we have to get into character as soon as possible. We can't let others find out that something is amiss. Di Beichen nodded. "Let's see if there are any relevant records here." Gong Jun should be able to understand things like the amount of the mission very soon. What we have to think about now is how to deal with that guy tonight. "I wonder if there are other people besides that guy." Bailey Hong Zhuang frowned slightly. They really couldn't be sure about this at the moment. They could only wait and see at night. The two of them looked around the tent and found that there was nothing useful here. Most of them were their clothes and some unimportant things. In the end, Bailey Hong Zhuang focused all her attention on Gu Jian's storage ring. As long as it was something important, the two of them would definitely carry it with them. It was just that there were a lot of things inside, so she needed to spend some time looking through them carefully. Chapter 7210. Hearing the 10% commission, Bailey Hong Zhuang sighed in her heart. This was really in line with Gu Jian's style. He was really ruthless. According to the situation in the account book, even if it was the steward, the number of spirit-devouring stones that could be deducted each time was not much. He also took 10% of it. It could be seen that Lei Jun and the other man really had no choice but to agree. Usually whenever you have a need we have never refused. If you are still like this then we have no choice. The man's face was also a little ugly. If it were not for the cultivation resources, they would not talk nonsense with Gu Jian at all. This guy was really insatiable. The atmosphere became tense in an instant. A moment later Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled and said, I just casually mentioned it. Why are you so nervous? Sit down first. Seeing this, Lei Jun and Lei Jun slowly sat down, but the seriousness on their faces still did not dissipate. We have already taken all the cultivation resources. This is yours. Di Beichen put 2 Qingquan bags on the table. These were the cultivation resources they finally took out according to Gu Jian's temperament. If there was no deviation the things inside should be about the same. Lei Jun and Lei Jun did not speak. They took the bag and looked at it. Their faces looked better. How is it? I didn't lie to you, did I? Bailey Hongzhuang said. The man nodded slightly. You also know that it is not easy for us to save these. Of course I know. Aren't we all the same? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and said, Don't worry. We are all grasshoppers on the same rope. How can I be so excessive? Lei Jun and Lei Jun were also immersed in the joy of getting the cultivation resources. Their faces were full of smiles. By the way, I want to ask if you have seen this woman? Bailey Hongzhuang took out a portrait. It was Xiao Sou's appearance. Lei Jun and Lei Jun looked at the portrait. They looked at it and then shook their heads. I haven't seen her. Why are you looking for this woman? Someone asked me and I saw that she was pretty so I was a little interested, Bailey Hongzhuang said with a smile. The two of them also understood that not only was Gu Jian greedy for money, he was also lustful. However, the woman in the painting was indeed not bad, no wonder he was interested. Indeed, we have never seen this woman before. However, if you are sure that she is in our crossing immortal domain, you will be able to find her after spending some time. However, I'm not sure if she is in the mine. If you see this woman, remember to tell me. Bailey Hongzhuang put away the painting. Don't let others get ahead of you. The man laughed. Well, it's hard to say who's good looking. But don't worry, I'll keep an eye out for you. All right. By the way, I've already found the beautiful lady you took a fancy to a few days ago. I'll send her to you tomorrow. The man winked. It's getting late so we'll be leaving first. After hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but be dumbfounded. Gu Jian was already dead. How could he leave such a mess for her? After seeing the two of them leave, Xiao He and Xiao Bai quickly followed them. They still did not know the name of the other person. If they followed them, they should be able to get a lot of information. Inside the house, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were staring at each other. End of chapter. Chapter 72:11. What should we do tomorrow? Bailey Hongzhuang was a little worried. Dealing with women, she was not good at it. From the man's smirk, it was obvious that Gu Jian had been eyeing this woman for some time. It was not easy to find her. If she said no, she was afraid that it would not make sense. If the woman stayed, it would be even more troublesome. They had a lot of things to deal with now, and they also had to guard against that woman. It was really troublesome. Or should I say that I like Xiao Sou and have no interest in other women? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, thought for a moment and said, with Gu Jian's character, he will definitely not refuse. It may be strange to refuse rashly. Then what should I do? She was not interested in women at all. Let Gong Jun pretend to be Gu Jian tomorrow. Di Beichen said. As soon as these words came out, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded with a strange look. It seems that Gong Jun is still useful to us here. If there was no Gong Jun, this woman would be a big problem for them. But presumably this big problem was not a problem for Gong Jun. Gu Jian's ID is really strange today. Usually if there is such an opportunity he will definitely try to extort us. Today he didn't take the opportunity to embezzle. It surprised me a little. Lei Jun was puzzled. Maybe he also knows that what he did was a little too much. Lei Jun shook his head. I don't believe it. But fortunately Ji Chuan is more reliable. It should be Ji Chuan who distributed it. That's true. I really don't understand why Ji Chuan cooperated with Gu Jian. This guy is really troublesome. In the future, try to have a good relationship with Ji Chuan. We have only cooperated for 2 years. We don't trust each other enough. After a long time, we may be able to replace Gu Jian and understand the whole channel. Do you think Ji Chuan's trouble has been solved? A few days ago, I saw him with a worried look on his face, but when I saw him today he didn't seem to care anymore. Could it be that he has thought of a solution? I don't think so. There's no way they can come up with a solution in such a short time. The other party must have taken a fancy to Ji Chuan's mine 13 because of its high production rate. If Ji Chuan isn't strong enough, there's nothing he can do about it. Let's do our best to help him. If Ji Chuan gets messed with, it won't do us any good. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang woke up early in the morning to observe the situation around the mine. The cultivators who were mining were also called out early in the morning to mine. The daily requirements were similar to the requirements they had when they were mining. After Gong Jun nodded to Bailey Hongzhuang, he also entered the mine. Bailey Hongzhuang looked around, thinking about how to get close to Gong Jun and exchange their identities. Lei Jun and the others shouldn't have sent him here so soon. Di Baichen noticed Bailey Hongzhuang's slightly complicated look and said. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. In a while, I'll say that I'm going to the mine to check the situation, and then take the opportunity to exchange our identities. However, just as the two of them finished breakfast and Bailey Hongzhuang was about to enter the mine, a group of people came over. Ji Chuan, have you thought about it? The man in the lead was tall and looked extremely sturdy. At this moment he was condescendingly looking at Di Baichen. His words were full of threats. Chapter 72:12. What do you think? Di Baichen looked at the menacing guy in front of him. He didn't need to think about it to know that Ji Chuan had a grudge against him. After hearing this, the man couldn't help but sneer. You're still pretending in front of me. Is it interesting? The appearance of this group of people immediately attracted the attention of the surrounding practitioners, who all looked at them curiously. It seems that this should be the trouble you heard yesterday. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed. Trouble really came fast. It was only the second day, and the other party had already come to find them. If you don't exchange my number 13 with me, you should be very clear about what will happen. The man put his hands on his hips and looked at Di Baichen playfully. His eyes were full of arrogance. I'm in a good mood now, so I'll give you a chance. If you really want to fight, it won't be as simple as giving up the mine. Yuan Gang, don't go too far. Lei Jun came over with a gloomy face. Yuan Gang glanced at the two people. Zhou, I'm asking Ji Chuan. What does it have to do with you? I advise you to mind your own business. If you stand with him, you have to be prepared to pay the price. Zhou looked at Yuan Gang with some fear. This guy's strength was really strong, stronger than theirs. Usually he was simply a tyrant here. If possible, he only hoped that he would not have any contact with Yuan Gang. However, Ji Chuan had already cooperated with them twice. If they stood by and did nothing this time, this friendship would probably disappear. This was not the result he wanted. I'm afraid that Steward Ji has no other choice but to hand over the mine. I hope not. I heard that Yuan Gang's character is very violent. Although the mining rate of his number 3 mine is slightly lower, the difference is not too big. The reason why the results are not good these times is that he is too ruthless. Many people in his mine have lost their lives. If Steward Ji exchanges mine number 13, we will be the unlucky ones. As soon as these words came out, the surrounding practitioners all turned pale. This was definitely not good news. This is the mine I'm in charge of. I won't give it away, Di Baichen said calmly. Yuan Gang and the cultivators behind him all looked at Ji Chuan in surprise. Did this guy have a change of heart? The last time they met, they gave Ji Chuan a very unforgettable memory. He thought that everything would go smoothly this time, but he didn't expect this guy to be different from his usual self and become unyielding. So you're saying that I didn't teach you enough last time? Yuan Gang's face darkened. He twisted his hands and the sound of bones cracking could be heard. Seeing that Yuan Gang was about to make a move, Zhou couldn't help but stand up and say, if you have something to say, let's talk about it. I think it's better to wait until the console comes. Privately exchanging mine tunnels is against the rules. Get out of my way. Yuan Gang waved his hand and directly pushed Zhou to the side. As long as we discuss this matter, it won't be a problem. There is no need to trouble the console. Are you okay? Lei Jun supported Zhou. Suddenly pushed, Zhou's face darkened, and the anger in his eyes could be vaguely seen. I'm fine. Di Baichen glanced at Zhou and then looked at Yuan Gang. This is a matter between us. There is no need to involve others. The end of this chapter. Chapter 72:13. Following Di Baichen's words, Yuan Gang burst into laughter as if he'd heard a funny joke. Haha, what did I just hear? This coward said that he shouldn't implicate others? Yuan Gang's friends all treated Di Baichen as the funniest joke. Zhou and Lei Jun also looked at Ji Chuan in astonishment. They didn't know why, but when they looked at the man in front of them, they felt as if something had changed. They clearly remembered that last time, Ji Chuan couldn't fight back at all against Yuan Gang. Because of this matter, Ji Chuan and Gu Jian had been thinking about how to solve it, and had even asked them about it. At that time they didn't say much. None of them wanted to get involved with such a big trouble like Yuan Gang. However, now that Ji Chuan said that he would bear the responsibility alone, he felt somewhat apologetic in his heart. Ji Chuan, don't be so shameless. Yuan Gang restrained his smile and his gaze became vicious. Pretending to be a hero at this time will only make you a coward later. Bang! A fierce fist suddenly struck out. Yuan Gang's body leaned back and blood instantly came out of his nose. You talk too much nonsense. Di Beichen waved his fist, his eyes full of disdain. The sudden change made all the people present dumbfounded. One by one they looked at Di Beichen in disbelief, thinking that this guy must be crazy. Holy shit, am I seeing things? Ji Chuan actually dared to take the initiative to hit Yuan Gang? I think Ji Chuan is completely crazy. He can even do such a thing. Does he know that he's going to die today? Yuan Gang wiped his nose and looked at the scarlet blood in his hand. His gaze suddenly became extremely vicious. You're courting death. Yuan Gang roared and rushed forward, fully displaying the strength of the elementary immortal stage. Bang! Di Beichen didn't back down. Almost at the same time, his figure was like a ghost, and his powerful fist once again smashed into Yuan Gang's body. End the battle quickly. Don't let others see any clues. Bailey Hongzhuang reminded him through voice transmission. Often it was easiest to expose oneself during a fight. They simply didn't know what moves Ji Chuan was proficient in, and even his attributes were different. Once this information was exposed, it would inevitably arouse suspicion. When Yuan Gang felt Di Beichen's terrifying power for the second time, his expression became very strange. A while ago when they had fought, Ji Chuan had been beaten by him. But now Ji Chuan's strength was no longer inferior to his. How was this possible? Yuan Gang's heart was filled with shock. His attacks became even more ferocious, wreaking havoc like a violent storm. Di Beichen was as steady as Mount Tai. He didn't panic in the slightest because of Yuan Gang's increasingly fierce attacks. Moreover, as soon as he opened his third eye, he directly ignored those unnecessary movements and attacked Yuan Gang's vital points directly. He couldn't fight with Yuan Gang like this. The more he exposed, the bigger the problem. Almost everyone believed that Di Beichen had a dead end when facing Yuan Gang. Zhou Su thought that no matter what, he still had to help Ji Chuan, but he was pulled down by Lei Jun. Don't throw yourself in, Lei Jun said in a deep voice. Zhou Su frowned. He couldn't even bear to look at Ji Chuan. Yuan Gang was the strongest among all the stewards. He was an existence that could do whatever he wanted. Last time, Ji Chuan was beaten to the point that he had to lie in bed for several days. This time he was afraid that he couldn't even keep his life. The expected scream followed, but this sound seemed to be somewhat different. End of chapter. Chapter 72:14. Everyone looked at the man who had been knocked to the ground. Yuan Gang was covering his abdomen in pain and howling. Looking at this completely unexpected scene, everyone present was dumbfounded. Did I see it wrong? When did Ji Chuan become so strong? Last time he was beaten so hard that he couldn't fight back. Yuan Gang was defeated as soon as they started fighting. I'm afraid the situation will change in the future. All of a sudden, everyone looked at Ji Chuan in a different way. Yuan Gang had always been the strongest person here. Ji Chuan could defeat Yuan Gang, which proved that he had become the strongest person here. What's going on? Zhou Su and Lei Jun stared at each other. They hadn't seen Ji Chuan for a while. How could he become so strong? Why did he need help? Looking at Yuan Gang who had fallen to the ground, Di Beichen said slowly, "Get lost." You. Yuan Gang's eyes widened as he stared at Di Beichen. He felt a burning pain on his face. Under the watchful eyes of so many people, he had never been so humiliated, and now he had fallen to this extent. I'll count to 3. If you don't get lost, I'll let them collect your corpse. 3, 2. Yuan Gang suddenly became anxious. The practitioners behind him didn't dare to delay. They hurriedly dragged Yuan Gang and ran away. They didn't doubt the truth of Ji Chuan's words at all. A group of people came in a mighty way, but now they quickly retreated like stray dogs. The change of the situation was unexpected, but the people in Mine 13 thought it was a good thing. At least they didn't have to follow Yuan Gang. After everyone left, Zhou Su came over with a look of surprise. Ji Chuan, I haven't seen you for a while. Your strength has improved so much. It happened that I made some progress. Your progress is not small. You even defeated Yuan Gang. In the future you can do whatever you want. The role of cultivation resources is still very big, Bailey Hongzhuang said. Zhou Su nodded slightly. That's true. Part of the reason why their cultivation had always been slightly inferior was that their cultivation resources were not as good as Yuan Gang's. In addition to the cultivation resources he usually received, Yuan Gang also had other channels. It was because of this that so many people followed Yuan Gang. However, since you can defeat Yuan Gang now, you don't have to worry about anyone coming to make trouble for you in the future. Your mine's recent mining rate is quite high. You should have a good result in the next selection. Lei Jun said. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Lei Jun. She had also noticed Zhou Su's previous actions. Obviously, between the two, Zhou Su was more reliable, calm. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't say much to the two of them. After all, they were just partners and couldn't be called friends. Noticing the slightly indifferent expressions of the two, Zhou Su and Lei Jun naturally understood what was going on. If they had participated in it just now, presumably the two would not have such an attitude. If only I had taken action just now. Zhou Su sighed. How could he not understand that if he could take advantage of this opportunity to win people's hearts, it could not be better? It was a pity that such a good opportunity was missed by him. It was impossible to do it again. The end of this chapter. Chapter 72:15. I'm to blame for this. Lei Jun was also a little embarrassed. If he hadn't stopped Zhou Su just now, it wouldn't have been like this. Zhou Su waved his hand slightly. You did it for my own good. Do you feel that Ji Chuan has become a little different? Lei Jun subconsciously looked at the tent, his eyes full of exploration. Normally, Ji Chuan was also very taciturn, but most of the time he carried a kind of oppressive aura. But now, although Ji Chuan was still the same, his eyes were different, tenacious and spirited, giving off a completely different feeling. What's different? Zhou Su asked. I feel that his strength has become stronger. People are like this. When their strength is strong, even their aura has become stronger. That's true. Lei Jun nodded. Maybe that's it? Inside the room. We didn't expose too much just now, so no one should have noticed. Bailey Hongzhuang said, I just don't know if Yuan Gang will still find trouble. They had just arrived and didn't even know the other party's background. If the other party had no background, then as long as the fist was hard enough it would be fine. But if the other party had a background, then it might be a hornet's nest. Let's wait and see. Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's wrinkled little face and said with a smile, Don't think about it. I don't think they will find that woman today. You can rest assured. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. That's true. After returning, Yuan Gang lay on the bed with a gloomy face. Brother Yuan, are you all right? The man next to him was worried. Damn Ji Chuan, this guy actually hit my Ming Men. It's really bad luck. When everyone heard this, they understood that the Ming Men was a practitioner's weak spot. Once it was hit, it would be very bad. Generally speaking, it was not easy for the other party to see through the Ming Men. No one thought that Ji Chuan would be so powerful that he could see through Yuan Gang's Ming Men. In my opinion, this kid should be trying his luck. He doesn't have the strength to see through this at all. There's something wrong with this kid. Yuan Gang calmed down after his anger subsided. He usually doesn't have this ability, but he seems to be even calmer today. Maybe he heard about your Achilles heel from somewhere else and had something to rely on. That's why he's so confident today. Hearing this, Yuan Gang fell into deep thought. Apart from this explanation, they really couldn't think of any other explanation. You guys keep an eye on this kid for me. If there's any news, inform me immediately. I must get my number 13. Don't worry, brother Yuan. We will. The situation was just as Di Beichen had predicted. Until the night, the woman that Zhou Su had threatened to send did not appear. She was completely relieved. Looking at Xiao He and Xiao Bai who had returned, Bailey Hongzhuang asked, Did you hear anything? We followed Zhou Su and the Lei army for a day, but there wasn't much news. However, I heard them say that they could go out and relax in 2 days. Xiao Bai said slowly, I think they should be talking about leaving the vicinity of the mine. Master, do you want to go with them? Xiao Shou was definitely not mining here. If they wanted to find her, they had to go to other places. Didn't you hear where they were going? No. Xiao Bai shook her head. End of this chapter. Chapter 72:16. Then we can only follow them. Bailey Hongzhuang spread out her hands. They didn't know the situation in Dushin Domain. At present, They didn't know what other places looked like except for the situation near the mine. If they didn't find someone to lead the way, they wouldn't know the route at all, nor where they could go and where they couldn't go. When Xiao He and Xiao Bai saw that Bailey Hongzhuang agreed, they quickly turned their eyes to Di Baichen. When the latter nodded slightly, the two little guys jumped up excitedly. Great. You want to go outside? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the two little guys in surprise. Master, we haven't been to a fun place for a while. Xiao He looked helpless. There's nothing near the mine, it's really boring. It was also very boring when we were in the town, Xiao Bai added. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly. That makes sense, but I wonder if there's a market in Dushin Domain? From the moment they entered here, all they saw were mines one after another. They even had a feeling that Dushin Domain was a huge spirit-devouring mine. It can't be that there isn't one, right? I don't know. 2 days later, Di Baichen and Bailey Hongzhuang appeared in front of Zhou Su and Xiao He. Jichuan, why are you here? Zhou Su asked in surprise. Where are you going? Di Baichen said casually. We saw that the weather today is good and we haven't gone out for a while, so we want to go out for a walk. Zhou Su smiled slightly. It's actually quite boring to stay here and face these guys all day. I wonder if we can go with you? You want to go too? Can't I? Of course you can. Zhou Su smiled faintly. We originally wanted to ask you to go with us, but we also know that you've always been uninterested in such things, so we didn't ask you. That's right, you usually don't participate in such things. Why are you suddenly interested today? Lei Jun was also somewhat baffled. Ji Chuan had always been a taciturn person. He had never been interested in this kind of thing. They had asked Ji Chuan several times in the past. After all, the two sides had a cooperative relationship. They also hoped to have a better relationship with Ji Chuan. However, after being rejected several times, they knew that Ji Chuan really didn't like going out, so they didn't ask anymore. A person's mentality will always change. Di Baichen smiled faintly, especially with the change in strength. Hearing this, Zhou Su and Ji Chuan understood. In the past, Yuan Gang had always been their local tyrant and Ji Chuan was often targeted. Now that he had finally made a comeback, it was no surprise that Ji Chuan was in a good mood. Let's go. It's rare that everyone is in the mood to go out for a walk. I can also look for a girl that I'm looking for. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled wickedly. Hearing this, Zhou Su helplessly looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Don't forget, there is still a girl waiting for you. Forget about that, I'll give it to you. Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand, looking bored. It can't be? Didn't you like that girl very much before? Before is before, people always change. Bailey Hongzhuang repeated Di Baichen's words. She really didn't have the fortune to enjoy it? Okay. Zhou Su shook his head. The speed of your change of heart is really fast. This chapter ends. Chapter 72-17. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips twitched when she heard Zhou Su call himself a scumbag. She could only take the blame. It just so happens that Lei Jun is short of a woman recently. It's just right to give her to him. Zhou Su turned his eyes to Lei Jun, and his eyes were full of pride. That's great. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. It's good to treat her well. Lei Jun looked at Bailey Hongzhuang strangely. It's okay for others to say so, but is it really okay for you to say so? If you don't mind, I'll take her away, Lei Jun said. He had seen the woman and she was really good looking. I don't mind at all. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and then looked at Di Baichen. My heart belongs to someone. Zhou Su and Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. They only thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was worried about Xiao Shou. This time her temperament really changed. Only Di Baichen understood that this person belonged to him. Thinking about it, we haven't been to the market for a while. I have to buy some clothes. Lei Jun looked at his clothes. They rarely went to the market on weekdays. Since they were here, they simply bought what they needed to buy. Bailey Hongzhuang and Zhou Su had been walking beside the two of them. They quietly looked around and memorized the route. This place is really far. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the surrounding mines. They had walked a long way, but the surrounding scenery had not changed much. If it weren't so, we wouldn't go to the market so often. The location of the spirit-devouring mine has always been very remote. Zhou Su spread out his hands and shook his head helplessly. In fact, I used to think that the reason why Ji Chuan didn't want to go to the market with us was that he was too lazy to walk so far. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang thought about it and only felt that it was indeed possible. Ji Chuan himself was definitely a person who was afraid of trouble. After walking for 2 hours, they finally saw the appearance of the market. From the moment they stepped into the bazaar, the sound of hawking filled their ears. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled as she looked at the bustling street. It seemed that no matter where it was, the market would look the same. The market in the crossing immortal domain was also very lively. Many cultivators were shuttling back and forth in the market. It looked very lively. It seems like not everyone in the crossing immortal domain is mining. Xiaohei sighed. Along the way it started to feel that perhaps the entire crossing immortal domain was a mine. Who are these people? Bailey Hongzhuang looked confused. According to her understanding, most of the cultivators who had ascended to the crossing immortal domain had been captured to work in the mines. However, the people in front of her did not belong to such a situation. Some capable cultivators should be able to avoid that situation and live a good life in the crossing immortal domain, Di Beichen said with a faint smile. Indeed. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. No matter what kind of situation it was, there would always be some smart people who could break out of it and become the best of the best. There was no real despair. It was just a matter of whether you could open a path out of it. I suddenly have an idea. What idea? If we can't change the current situation in the crossing immortal domain, but we can become the best of the best here, then Father and the others will have no problem ascending, right? End of chapter. Chapter 72:18. That's a good idea. Di Beichen's eyes lit up. He knew that his father and the others were getting closer and closer to ascension. If there were no accidents, it should be around this time. That was why they were eager to go to the crossing immortal domain. Their ascension would be safe only if they solved the danger in the crossing immortal domain. Although life in the upper realm was very comfortable, for cultivators, increasing their strength was their greatest pursuit. As long as they could avoid mining in the crossing immortal domain, cultivating here would be much faster than cultivating in the upper realm. The laws of heaven and earth in the upper realm couldn't allow cultivators to break through to the beginner immortal realm. Only the higher realms could do that. We have to find someone we can trust here to get the information we need. Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes. They didn't plan to stay in the crossing immortal domain for too long, so they had to do everything as soon as possible. We'll find him soon. Di Beichen looked confident. Give them some time and they would definitely figure out the situation here. We're finally here. Lei Jun looked at the market in front of him and couldn't help but sigh. I'll go buy something I want first. What about you? You go buy first. We'll look around here, Di Beichen said. Okay, don't go too far. We'll be back soon. After Zhou Su and Lei Jun left, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen also looked around. Do you think Xiao Sou is the kind of person who has a good status in the crossing immortal domain? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the ladies who walked past her. These people looked very confident, just like the people in the chaotic immortal domain. With Xiao Sou's ability, if she really ascended to the crossing immortal domain, I don't think it's possible with her strength alone. Di Beichen looked thoughtful. The reason why she could establish herself here so quickly must be because of Shu Yu's help. According to Xiaofeng and the others, Shu Yu hasn't appeared for a long time. Could it be? The two of them looked at each other and had a guess in their hearts. If they were not wrong, perhaps Shu Yu was in the crossing celestial region now. Back then he was able to escape from the crossing immortal region, which already proved his ability. Perhaps he has already found a way to survive here. If that's really the case, perhaps we can narrow down the scope. Indeed, we should come here more often when we have time. There aren't many people who have seen Xiao Sou. We can also try to find someone who knows Shu Yu. However, we don't know how big the immortal crossing is. I'm afraid that it won't be too small. They had seen how big the realm of chaos was. Although the crossing immortal realm was not as big as the chaotic immortal realm, it was able to accommodate so many cultivators who had ascended from different places. Don't worry, our progress is already very good. Di Beichen smiled faintly. Moreover, we can still find helpers. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's clear eyes lit up. You're saying to ask Xiaofeng and the others to come over? Haven't they always wanted to see what the crossing immortal realm looks like? As long as they can find a safe place here, they won't be caught to mine. It'll be very convenient to find people here. That's true. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. After a few days we can ask them to come over. Otherwise, it'll be like looking for a needle in a haystack with just the two of us. End of chapter. Chapter 72:19. Hey, what did you two buy? Zhou Su and Lei Jun rushed over after buying things. The former put one hand directly on Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder. Bailey Hongzhuang's body stiffened, and she looked at the hand on her shoulder with a slightly complicated expression. This guy, After Zhou Su approached, he vaguely smelled a fragrance. Suddenly he had some doubts in his heart. Why did he smell such a good smell on Gu Jian's body? Gu Jian, you didn't have a soft fragrance in your arms last night, did you? Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly stunned, and then she understood. Do I have to tell you this kind of thing? Di Baichen pulled Zhou Su over with one hand. Let me see what you bought. I didn't buy anything. I just bought a few clothes with Lei Jun. I don't come out often, so I have to buy these things. You also know that the cultivation resources we have are not enough for our own use. We don't have spare money to buy these things. Look at Lei Jun's clothes. How shabby are they? It's shameful to wear them. Now that we have enough money, we should buy 2 outfits. They look more comfortable. That's true. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. The clothes you are wearing are indeed a little old. How can we compare with you? Zhou Su squinted. Among them, Gu Jian was the most well-off. This guy was mercenary. Anyway, they would only suffer losses if they were with him. I'll take it as a compliment. The 4 of them wandered around the neighborhood again. Lei Jun also went to the weapon pavilion, intending to exchange for a more convenient weapon. However, the price also made him extremely distressed. However, he had been eyeing this weapon for a long time and finally he reluctantly bought it. The prices here are really expensive. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the things in the weapon pavilion, and her eyebrows were full of confusion. The prices here were much higher than the prices they usually dealt with. They were not at the same level at all. Even in the realm of chaotic immortal, this price was exorbitant. However, she also noticed that the people here didn't seem to find it strange at all. Therefore, she didn't dare to ask directly and could only sigh. Sure enough, after he finished speaking, Zhou Su immediately followed up with his own words. It can't be helped. The entrance to the Crossing Immortal domain was sealed. There aren't many resources in the Crossing Immortal domain. Everything here is much more expensive than outside. I do want to leave the Crossing Immortal realm. The price here is really unacceptable. I heard that the people in the Chaotic Immortal realm have a much better life than us. It is also easier for them to obtain cultivation resources. Bailey Hongzhuang finally understood. In a place where one could only rely on self-sufficiency, the price would indeed be higher. What's the point of just hearing about it? The more you think about it, the more unbalanced you feel. Zhou Su looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a smile. Gu Jian, I always thought that you were the most cunning. Now it seems that you are quite open-minded. The reason why we are not as cunning as Gu Jian may lie in this? Lei Jun also nodded. He felt that Gu Jian's ability to adapt to the environment was much better than theirs. Speaking of which, Gu Jian, since you are so cunning, you should use the right path more. Otherwise, you won't be suppressed by Yuan Gang all the time. What right path? Bailey Hongzhuang was confused. This chapter ends. Chapter 72:20. You're so smart and your flattery skills must be unparalleled. Zhou Su waved his hand. If you can coax the consul, then we won't have to be controlled by Yuan Gang all the time. Although Yuan Gang's strength is strong, we may not be unable to deal with him if we join forces. The biggest problem is that he coaxes the consul very happily. Every time there is a problem, the consul always helps him, so we don't want to offend him. Wasn't that what you were worried about in the past? Oh, you're talking about this? Bailey Hongzhuang pretended to have known it long ago, but she couldn't help sighing in her heart. Sure enough, the reason why this guy is so arrogant is that he has a certain reliance. It's not so easy to please the consul. Yuan Gang and the consul have a fixed relationship for a long time. It's difficult for us to break them apart. Di Baichen said slowly. You're right. Zhou Su sighed. This is the biggest problem. Although you taught Yuan Gang a lesson this time, it's hard to guarantee that this guy won't deal with you in other ways. It's not hard to guarantee, it's certain. Lei Jun looked certain. He has never suffered in our mine. With the consul's protection, he wants to bully us. This time he lost face in front of so many people. He must be angry. I think we'd better be mentally prepared. When the consul comes, this guy will definitely find a way to complain about us. We haven't done anything wrong recently. He shouldn't be able to find a reason, right? Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. That's not necessarily true. Lei Jun shook his head. I heard that the consul is very good to him. I even heard that Yuan Gang has more cultivation resources than us every time. Really? Zhou Su was also dumbfounded. So excessive? I also heard it from others, but I don't think this kind of thing is groundless. Indeed. Di Baichen nodded. It seems that we have to be mentally prepared. I didn't think that Ji Chuan would leave us such a mess after we arrived. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head helplessly. Yesterday when she saw Yuan Gang's appearance, she knew that trouble was inevitable. She had not seen this console yet, but she had to pass this hurdle if she wanted to. Wow, it smells so good. Xiaohei stretched her neck and sniffed the fragrance wafting in the air. Her eyes were filled with desire. Bailey Hongzhuang also smelled this very tempting fragrance, and noticed the envious looks of the two little fellows at the side. She understood that these two gluttons must have seen the delicious food and couldn't walk. Rutaisi Brothel's drunken fragrant chicken is really fragrant. Even when I walk past the entrance, I can smell that incomparably alluring aroma. Zhou Su looked at Rutaisi House's entrance with yearning. I've wanted to try this drunken fragrant chicken for a long time, but the price is too expensive. It's really not worth it just to satisfy my appetite. Lei Jun looked helplessly at Zhou Su. You've already talked about it so many times. If you really want to try it, then go. Although it's expensive, it's not like we can't afford it. Hearing the two's words, Bailey Hongzhuang was also helpless. Cultivators of the Radiant Sun realm were simply existences that could call the wind and summon the rain in the lower planes. In this crossing immortal domain they couldn't even afford to eat. The contrast was really too big. Chapter 72-21. If you want to go in, then go in. Why are you standing at the gate for so long? Bailey Hongzhuang stepped out and walked directly to Rutaisi House. Hey Gu Jian. Zhou Su was dumbfounded. He was just thinking about it. How could this guy directly go in? After all, there were 4 of them. After a meal, his cultivation resources had shrunk by quite a bit. At this time, a sound of nature came out from inside. Don't worry, it's my treat. Hearing this, Zhou Su suddenly opened his eyes wide. There was a bright light flashing in them. Gu Jian, is what you said true? Nonsense. Ha ha. Zhou Su laughed and quickly followed. You're so happy to be scolded? Lei Jun was speechless. What's the point of scolding? The most important thing is that Gu Jian is willing to treat us to drunken chicken. Zhou Su's face was proud. He put his hand on Lei Jun's shoulder and dragged him in. I recently found that Gu Jian doesn't seem to be as annoying as we thought. This guy also has his merits. Aren't you being bought over a little too quickly? Don't you think so? Actually, I think so too. Lei Jun nodded seriously. Randomly choosing a place in the lobby, the 4 people sat down. 2 drunken chicken. Zhou Su waved his hand. Looking at Zhou Su's impatient appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. It seemed that this guy really wanted to eat drunken chicken for a long time. Where was his usual steady appearance? Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at the menu and found that the price on it was indeed much more expensive than outside. Especially this drunken chicken as a signature dish, the price was even higher. You choose? Bailey Hongzhuang handed the menu to Di Beichen. The latter naturally picked up the menu and ordered a few dishes that Bailey Hongzhuang liked to eat. Ji Chuan, the dishes you ordered are like what women like to eat. There are even desserts? Zhou Su looked at Ji Chuan in surprise. He had never eaten with Ji Chuan and didn't know that his taste was like this. Is there a problem? Di Beichen raised his eyebrows. No, I'm just curious. It's good that someone invites you to dinner. You still talk so much. Be careful that someone doesn't invite you later. You'll be finished. Lei Jun said with disgust. Alright, I'll shut up. Not long after, the waiter had already served all the dishes. Smelling the tempting fragrance, Zhou Su laughed. Then I won't be polite. You don't look like someone who would be polite. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Go ahead. Di Beichen raised his chopsticks, picked up a piece of chicken, and placed it naturally into Bailey Hongzhuang's bowl. Seeing this, Zhou Su and Lei Jun's hands paused slightly. They didn't know why, but why did they feel that Ji Chuan treated Gu Jian extraordinarily well? Bailey Hongzhuang also noticed that something was wrong when the two of them looked at each other. She couldn't help but glance at Di Beichen. He was used to taking care of her on weekdays, but he forgot that their identities were not the same now. However, Di Beichen looked indifferent and looked at the 2 people opposite him. Is there a problem? No. Zhou Su and Lei Jun shook their heads like rattles and quickly turned their eyes to the wine and dishes in front of them. Shopkeeper, a drunken chicken. A man walked into Rutaisi restaurant and looked at the shopkeeper with great familiarity. Take away again? Brother Yuan didn't have much time, so he took them all away. Chapter 72-22. Wait a moment, it will be ready soon. The shopkeeper walked to the side and instructed the waiter. The man stood in the middle of the room, his gaze casually looking at the hall. However, when he noticed the 4 familiar figures in the middle of the hall, his expression immediately changed. When he clearly saw the dishes the four had ordered, his gaze became even more strange. In the next instant, he did not bother to explain to the shopkeeper and turned to run out. Brother Yuan. Brother Yuan, Du Bing, why are you in such a hurry? Yuan Gang frowned and looked at the person in displeasure. Have you bought the drunken fragrant chicken? No. Then why did you run back? Yang Jiong asked doubtfully. I just saw Ji Chuan and the others at Rutaisi restaurant. As soon as these words came out, Yuan Gang's expression suddenly changed. What did you say? It's true, I guarantee that I didn't see wrongly. Du Bing's expression was serious. Moreover, they ordered a lot of dishes and wine, looking very unrestrained. I noticed that there were 2 servings of drunken fragrant chicken. Brother Yuan, this isn't right. Yang Jiong could not help but say, Ji Chuan and the others don't have many cultivation resources. Normally they are already lacking in cultivation resources. How could they have the ability to come here to eat and drink? There is indeed something wrong? Yuan Gang narrowed his eyes. Yuan Gang narrowed his eyes. He had been keeping an eye on Ji Chuan for a long time, but he had never heard of such a thing before. Moreover, he always felt that it was unreasonable for Ji Chuan's strength to suddenly become so strong. It had not been long since the last time they fought. It was impossible for this guy's strength to increase so much in such a short period of time. It was really strange. The most important thing was that he could still eat and drink like this. Could it be that this guy had found a way to obtain cultivation resources? Let's go take a look. Yuan Gang immediately walked towards Rutaisi restaurant. Du Bing and the others saw this and hurriedly followed. The taste of drunken fragrant chicken is indeed similar to what I imagined. It's really delicious. Zhou Su's face was full of happiness. Usually he stayed in the mine. That place was really too barren. Even the food here did not taste good. The taste of drunken fragrant chicken is naturally not bad, but with just the few of you, can you really afford it? An ear-piercing voice sounded from behind Zhou Su. Hearing this rough and familiar voice, Zhou Su hurriedly turned his head. At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others also raised their heads. After seeing Yuan Gang's group, they only felt that enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. After the shopkeeper heard that Di Bei Chen's party may not be able to afford the meal, he quickly rushed over. The dishes ordered for this table were not few. If the other party intended to eat a free meal, then it would be bad. Brother Yuan, did you just say that they can't afford it? The shopkeeper asked anxiously. Yuan Gang's lips curled into a sneer. These guys are from our mine, but they've always been poor. I've never seen them so extravagant. Hearing this, the shopkeeper's expression changed and he hurriedly said, Guests, this is a small business. You can't eat here for free. As soon as he said that, the surrounding people looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 with complicated gazes. Eating and dashing was looked down upon no matter where one went. Who said we're going to eat for free? Bailey Hongzhuang's expression turned cold. They did not have this intention at all. They never thought that the shopkeeper would directly put this on their heads without saying anything. End of chapter. Chapter 72-23. Since you don't intend to eat for free, please pay up first. The shopkeeper's face was cold. The people in front of him were indeed unfamiliar. He had never seen them before. Compared to them, Yuan Gang was undoubtedly much more familiar. Smack. Bailey Hongzhuang slammed a bag of blood spirit stones on the table. Her expression was as cold as ice. Look carefully, we are not poor people. Looking at the dazzling blood spirit stones on the table, the pupils of the surrounding people shrank. They could tell that these people were rich with one move. Not to mention a meal they could even afford to eat. The shopkeeper obviously did not expect this situation, but he was quickly filled with surprise. He hurriedly said, Thank you. Wait. Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly put away the blood spirit stones. Her gaze shifted from Yuan Gang to the shopkeeper. Originally we did not intend to eat and dash. However, you rushed over and slandered us for no reason. We haven't even finished our meal. How are we going to settle this account? The shopkeeper also knew that he was in the wrong. He was too anxious after listening to Yuan Gang's words. His attitude was indeed unpleasant. Sir, what do you want to do? What do I want to do? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Then, her expression turned cold again. I hate it when people slander me. Since you said that we are eating and dashing, I can only confirm this matter. Zhou Su and the others looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment. After the initial panic, they actually felt very happy when facing her like this. That's right. That's what we should do. This thought surfaced in their minds. This was the right thing to do. The shopkeeper was instantly dumbfounded. He subconsciously looked at Yuan Gang. How did things turn out like this? If he had not listened to Yuan Gang's words, things would not have become so tense. When Yuan Gang saw Bailey Hongzhuang take out the blood spirit stones, his eyes narrowed. He did not expect Gu Jian to have so many blood spirit stones on him. Originally, according to his judgment, these fellows should have been penniless. This man is also interesting. He inexplicably rushed in and said that they have no money to pay. Isn't this nonsense? But the shopkeeper still believes him. If it were me, I would do the same. Otherwise, why would I be slandered for no reason? Brother Yuan, look at this. The shopkeeper looked at Yuan Gang awkwardly. For a moment he did not know what to do. Gu Jian, the grudge between us is our own business. Why do you have to implicate others? I'm implicating others? Bailey Hongzhuang sneered. We were just eating here and you guys came looking for trouble without saying anything, right? I'm only doing this to fulfill your wish. Otherwise, if I really paid the money, wouldn't you be slandering me? Yuan Gang's face stiffened. With your usual situation, you can't afford to come to this place. Oh, Bailey Hongzhuang sneered. I don't think we are very familiar with each other. I know nothing about your situation. Why do you know so much about mine? If you want to fight, just say it. Don't talk about other things. Di Beichen also said indifferently. Seeing this, Yuan Gang could not help but recall the situation when Di Beichen taught him a lesson 2 days ago. A trace of fear appeared in his eyes. End of chapter. Chapter 72-24. Don't think you're so great just because you're strong. We all know how much our monthly salary is. Since you dared to come here, the problem is already very clear. Yuan Gang's face was livid. When the consul arrives, I'll report everything that happened today. Then you'll have to pray for yourself. Let's go. Yuan Gang turned around and left. He hadn't completely recovered from his injury. Once they fought, he would definitely be no match for them. If he wanted revenge, he would wait for the consul to come. Du Bing and the others didn't expect that the situation would end like this. But since Yuan Gang was ready to leave, they naturally wouldn't continue to stay here. Wait. Bailey Hongzhuang stopped him. Yuan Gang turned his head. What do you want to do? Nothing. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was mild. You've ruined our mood to eat. We're not interested in staying here anymore. You'll pay for this meal. With her words, Yuan Gang's anger suddenly rose in his eyes. What did you say? Are you deaf? You dare to talk to me like this? Yuan Gang's cold voice was full of threat. Who do you think you are? Bailey Hongzhuang sneered disdainfully. I'll give you 2 choices. 1, pay the money and leave. 2, be beaten up by us and then leave. Which one do you choose? At the same time, Di Beichen had already walked to Bailey Hongzhuang. A faint hostility broke out from his body. Like a flood, a terrible momentum shrouded Yuan Gang and the others. Du Bing and the others were all dumbfounded. They had always been unscrupulous with Yuan Gang. Who would have thought that now they would be threatened like this? The most important thing was that they didn't have many people here today. If they really fought, what Gu Jian said was indeed not a lie. Zhou Su and Lei Jun looked at each other. They had always thought that Gu Jian was a mouse. No matter what happened, he would hide behind and benefit from it. What had happened recently? How was Gu Jian a mouse now? He was a tiger. To be able to be so unyielding in the face of Yuan Gang, coupled with Ji Chuan's martial prowess, these two simply felt like big shots. Yuan Gang stared at the two of them for a long time. His face first turned red from anger, then turned green, and finally became as black as the bottom of a pot. In the end, he threw the blood spirit stone on the table. Ji Chuan, Gu Jian, I'll remember you. This matter isn't over yet. Just wait and see. Yuan Gang left these words behind and quickly left Rutesi brothel with the others. Seeing this, everyone couldn't help but sigh. Originally, they thought that Yuan Gang's group was here to cause trouble. Unexpectedly, Di Beichen's group was the real deal. With just a few words, they drove the other party away. Moreover, they made the other party feel so aggrieved. Di Beichen then sat down again. At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang also sat down. Seeing this, Zhou Su couldn't help but ask in surprise, "You're not leaving?" It's rare for someone to treat us. Wouldn't it be a pity to waste so much food like this? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. They hadn't eaten many mouthfuls of this big table of dishes. Looking at the two people who continued to eat as if nothing had happened, Zhou Su scratched his hair. He only felt that what they said was quite reasonable. With your attitude just now, aren't you afraid of Yuan Gang's revenge? Lei Jun was a little guilty. When he thought of the console he had a headache. This chapter ends. Chapter 72-25. If we don't do this he won't be so against us? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Don't be silly. He has already hated us. Even if you compromise now he won't let us go. Instead of that it's better to confront him directly. At least it's more pleasant. Zhou Su thought about it and had to admit that Bailey Hongzhuang was telling the truth. You're right. Yuan Gang won't let us go. In another month the console will come to us. What are you going to do then? Lei Jun came over and lowered his voice to ask, have you already thought about how to deal with it? No. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. Don't lie to us. Now we are all grasshoppers on the same boat. If there is really a way we don't have to be afraid. What I said is true. Bailey Hongzhuang said calmly. No way? Zhou Su was dumbfounded. You didn't think of any way? Counter soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir. Di Beichen's gentle voice sounded. Zhou Su and Lei Jun looked at the two people's unhurried appearance and were completely convinced. The situation had become so serious. How could these two guys still be so indifferent? If it doesn't work, just do as you said. Seeing that Zhou Su and Lei Jun were so anxious to eat, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but speak. What did I say? What did I say? Flatter the console. Zhou Su saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was serious and didn't seem to be joking at all. He couldn't help but be dumbfounded. How could this guy say such a joke so seriously and calmly? Well, I won't joke with you. Bailey Hongzhuang put down her chopsticks. Do you know why Yuan Gang can be so close to the console? If we know the reason, we can find a way to start from here. Di Beichen said. Zhou Su turned to look at Lei Jun. Do you know? I heard someone mention it before but it wasn't very clear at the time. However, I can go and ask around. Then I'll leave this mission to you. Let us know when you've found out more about it. Di Beichen narrowed his eyes. If they wanted to gain a foothold in the mine they had to deal with Yuan Gang first. If they could take the opportunity to build a good relationship with the console, then their position would become very stable. Perhaps they could also take the opportunity to find a way for their family to gain a foothold here. If they couldn't do it, they could only take the opportunity to kill Yuan Gang, which was also a solution. Don't worry, I will do it as soon as possible. Lei Jun said seriously. After Yuan Gang's ruckus, the four of them no longer had the mood to continue playing in the market. After all, the number one thing they needed to deal with right now was Yuan Gang. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen also didn't find Xiao Sou's figure, but being able to get closer to Zhou Su was also a gain for them. At least these two people seemed to have believed them and began to treat them as their own people. After Yuan Gang went back he was furious. Although he didn't fight today he felt more shameful than a few days ago. Losing without a fight was tantamount to directly admitting that he was not Ji Chuan's opponent at all. When the console arrives I must kill this guy. Brother Yuan, don't be angry. Just let them be proud for a while. Then they will be finished. Du Bing comforted him. End of this chapter. Chapter 72-26. Yuan Gang's face was extremely gloomy. Even in the face of several familiar people, he still felt ashamed. There must be a reason why Ji Chuan and the others suddenly became so tough. Yuan Gang's voice was cold and full of resentment. I must find out the root of this matter. These guys may have secretly embezzled the spirit-devouring stone. Otherwise they couldn't suddenly become so generous. He was almost sure that Ji Chuan's previous strength was not fake. So, there was only one reason why his strength could suddenly improve so much. He embezzled it. Only by embezzling the spirit-devouring stone and using it to exchange for other cultivation resources could he make such great progress. Otherwise, with Ji Chuan's level, relying on the resources distributed on weekdays would not make much progress at all. Embezzled? Du Bing and others looked at each other. Embezzling the spirit-devouring stone was no stranger to every steward. Every steward would secretly hide 2 pieces of spirit-devouring stone when they handed it in, because it was also of great use to them. Basically, it was something that was tacitly agreed. Brother Yuan, even if they embezzled it, I'm afraid they can't embezzle so much, right? Du Bing was a little doubtful. The number of spirit-devouring stone they had to hand in every month was already a lot, and in some months they couldn't even gather enough. Generally speaking, it was basically impossible to get so many spirit-devouring stones at the level that they could gather. Jiong, have you found anything recently? Yang Jiong shook his head. Ji Chuan and the others basically stay in the mine on weekdays and rarely go to other places. I haven't observed their other actions. Keep an eye on them. They definitely have a way. Yuan Gang emphasized. Brother Yuan, don't worry. I'll keep an eye on them. If there's the slightest movement, I'll inform you as soon as possible. Yuan Gang showed a satisfied expression. Let's try to find out about this matter before the consul arrives. After Bailey Hongzhuang and others returned to the mine, Lei Jun had already tried to find a way to understand the relationship between Yuan Gang and the consul at the first time. There was no impenetrable wall in this world. Even if Yuan Gang usually hid it well, as long as he put in a little effort, there would still be some channels to understand. I think we should go to the market more often. We have to start looking for Xiao Sou there. Bailey Hongzhuang was deep in thought. There was no hope for the mine, but in the current situation they could not abandon this identity. All the cultivators in the crossing celestial domain were registered. Unless they had worked in the mine for a certain number of years or had made a special contribution, they could resign from their position and go to other places. Otherwise, without this identity, it was very likely that they would be captured and forced to mine. We have more freedom here. As long as we can fulfill our monthly quota, it won't be a problem for us to go to other places. Di Baichen said slowly. They didn't get much information from Zhou Su and the others today, especially some common-sense questions. It was precisely because it was a question of common sense that it was easy to be exposed when asked. Therefore he could only ask about it in a roundabout way. He really didn't know much. Should we find a day to get Zhou Su drunk? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up, and a plan suddenly sprouted. End of this chapter. Chapter 72-27. After spending time with Zhou Su for the past few days, she felt that Zhou Su was not guarded against them at all. Especially in the past few days, he had obviously treated them as his own people. If they took the opportunity to get him drunk and asked him some simple questions, he would definitely answer them without hesitation. If he thinks it's strange, you can play dumb. I'll say that you like to ask these meaningless questions when you're drunk, and he won't take it to heart. Di Baichen looked at the woman who was talking excitedly as if she had figured everything out. He couldn't help but smile. Madam, why do you want me to play dumb? I'm not very good at it. Bailey Hongzhuang said matter-of-factly. Also, from what I can see, Ji Chuan was not very close to them before, so they don't know much about you. So they won't know much about you when you're drunk, and the possibility of the plan succeeding is higher. What do you think? Madam, you've already figured everything out for me, so I can only follow your orders, Di Baichen said with a faint smile. Will it really work? Bailey Hongzhuang asked with uncertainty. Madam, of course your plan will work. Looking at Di Baichen's smiling face, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but twitch her mouth. She didn't know if this guy was laughing at her on purpose. 2 days later, Di Baichen and Bailey Hongzhuang went to the market again. In the end, they bought a map from a shop. Looking at the map, they had a rough understanding of the environment of the crossing celestial realm. According to their current location, they were only in the east of the crossing celestial realm. The crossing celestial realm was not small, and there were also cities, but the scale was undoubtedly much smaller than the chaotic celestial realm. It's a big task to find Xiao Sou in such a big area. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly. They didn't have any clues at the moment. It was not easy to find such a person. In my opinion, why don't we let Xiaofeng and the others come over first? With their help, it'll be much faster. Di Baichen nodded slightly. Let them come over first. If you're worried about being exposed, then grab a few identity cards first. With their abilities, it shouldn't be a problem. All right. That night, Di Xiaofeng and the others appeared in the crossing immortal domain. This is the crossing immortal domain? Di Xiaofeng scanned his surroundings. At first glance, he felt that it was no different from the chaotic immortal realm. That's right. The cultivators here are all at the Brilliant Sun Realm and the Brilliant Sun Realm. You guys shouldn't have to worry here. However, we can't guarantee that there won't be any initial Sun Realm cultivators. Do you guys have any clues? Di Xiaofeng glanced at them and asked. Di Baichen handed the map over. Look at it yourself. The crossing immortal domain is not small. Right now, we don't have any specific information about Xiao Sou's whereabouts. However, we can confirm that Xiao Sou has indeed appeared in the crossing immortal domain. This place is so big. If we want to find her, just the two of us won't be enough. We'll have to rely on your help. Hearing that, Xiren waved his hand. Don't worry. Leave this to us. It's best not to make too much of a fuss during the search. We don't want to attract unnecessary attention. Don't worry. We know what to do. Chapter 72-28. After talking for a while, Di Xiaofeng and the others had a certain understanding of the current situation. So you don't know much about the situation in the Du Immortal Domain? We don't know much at the moment, but after we stay in the mine for a while, we should know more. Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly, we have rented a courtyard here. You can live here for the time being and try not to attract attention. We'll ask around here for now. After we know more about the situation, we'll go to other places. Di Beichen said in a deep voice. Understood. I think it won't be long before we find Xiao Sou. The key has been in her hands for so long. It's time to take it back. Di Xiaofeng narrowed his eyes. He already hated this woman from the bottom of his heart. He must take back the Di family's inheritance. He couldn't let it be destroyed by this woman. Actually, we can do a small business. Shengguan Yingying thought for a while and said, didn't you say that the things here are more expensive? If we sell the things from the upper realm. Everyone's eyes lit up when they heard this. In terms of cultivation resources, the Du Immortal Domain naturally didn't care about the things from the upper realm. However, the things needed for daily life were in high demand here. If they did business here, on one hand they could accumulate more cultivation resources for the Di family. On the other hand, they could also get more information through doing business. Perhaps they could get information faster than Di Beichen and the others in the mine. Yingying, you came up with a good idea. Bailey Hongzhuang praised. After we go back, we'll find a way to get Gong Jun out. With him, your business should be more successful. Gong Jun was best at doing business. Even if it was a different place and type of business, it shouldn't be difficult for him. Gong Jun is here too? Bai Li Yanche was shocked. Isn't he in Shiyun City? Qing Devil is chasing after us now. He came to the Crossing Immortal Domain to inform us after knowing about this. Hearing the name Qing Devil, everyone couldn't help but feel nervous. This guy had caused them a lot of trouble before. This guy really appeared? That's right. Right now, he is in the immortal realms and has a certain amount of power. If we encounter him, there would be unavoidable trouble. Xiao Sou is also here now. If the Qing Devil joins her, won't it be troublesome? He hadn't found Xiao Sou all this time. If the Qing Devil met her, although he wasn't sure whether the Qing Devil had feelings for her, it was true that she had given birth to the Qing Devil's child. Even a vicious tiger would not eat its cubs. Considering this, Qing Devil would definitely take care of Xiao Sou. It's indeed a little troublesome. Di Beichen nodded, so we have to find Xiao Sou before the Qing Devil arrives? Does the Qing Devil know that you are in the Crossing Immortal Domain now? I don't think so. But with his ability, I'm afraid it's only a matter of time. Everyone's heart sank. This was not good news. Let's take it one step at a time. Let's find Xiao Sou first and solve this problem. After we go to the Immortal Domain, we still have a chance to fight against the Qing Devil if we encounter him. Di Xiaofeng said in a deep voice. You should pay more attention during this period. End of this chapter. Chapter 72-29. Boss, is what you're saying true? Gong Jun looked at Di Beichen excitedly. Recently, he had been staying in the mine and pretending to mine. It was really boring. He had been hoping that his boss would get him out sooner. He didn't expect that his boss would not only save him, but also let him do his old job. This was simply too blissful. You don't want to? Di Beichen raised his eyebrows. No. Gong Jun hurriedly waved his hand. Happiness came too suddenly. I can't believe it. They plan to open a restaurant. It's very convenient to get information. You'll be the shopkeeper. Doing business is secondary. Getting information is the most important thing. Do you understand? Boss, actually, I can do these two things very well together. Gong Jun chuckled. With my strength, once this restaurant is opened, it definitely won't be worse than that Rutesi brothel you're talking about. In short, getting information about Xiao Sou is the most important thing. Bailey Hongzhuang emphasized. Gong Jun had always been most interested in business. It was impossible for him to not spend energy on this matter. Sister-in-law, how could I forget such an important thing? Gong Jun regained his serious expression. But who is this woman? Why did you run so far to find her? She's our opponent in the upper realm. Later she ran away. We haven't been able to find her. She ran so far and we're still looking for her? Gong Jun was speechless. This was simply a 10,000-mile chase. She took away the secret key passed down in the Beichen family, so we have to find her. Gong Jun's expression changed slightly. The secret key to unlock the seal? How do you know about unlocking the seal? Di Beichen suddenly asked. Gong Jun chuckled. I've heard them talk about it before, but I never took it to heart. How could there be such a thing as a seal? Di Baichen glanced at Gong Jun before withdrawing his gaze. I'm not too sure either, but the family inheritance seems to be very important to me. Boss, as the successor of the clan, we naturally have to find such an important thing. If the clan's inheritance is lost, how terrible would that be? Gong Jun lowered his gaze and his eyes gradually darkened. That's why you have to be more careful. Bailey Hongzhuang laughed faintly. Actually, Yen Che is also very good at gathering information. Just by relying on that face of his, he can gather information very quickly. In just a few days of preparation, Gong Jun, Di Xiaofeng, and the others had already opened the restaurant and named it Returning Imperial Restaurant. When she heard the name, Bailey Hongzhuang also felt very helpless. It was really easy to get it. Di Baichen's restaurant, so it was named Qinggyang Tower. How is it? My name isn't bad, right? Gong Jun looked at Di Baichen expectantly. I've been thinking about this for a long time. It's meaningful and pleasant to the ears. It's indeed not bad. Bai Li Yin Che nodded slightly. It's concise and comprehensive. Di Baichen looked at the 3 golden words on the plaque and didn't comment. Have you guys chosen the chef? We found 2 chefs from the clan. I've tasted them and the taste is very good. Di Xiaofeng said. Di Baichen handed a Cosmos bag to Gong Jun. There are some fruits in here that can be used as a specialty here. Everyone's eyes lit up when they saw that familiar fruit. That was a top-grade treasure. Boss, once this treasure is out, the price will be set very high. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.